back to another episode of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. I'm your host. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me, I've got the usual crew. We have Josh Torres.
The video game floodgates have opened again.
We have Adam Vitale.
Hello.
James Glizio.
Hey, folks.
And Xiao Minwu.
How's it going?
So it is the time that we have been kind of having circled on our calendar for the last several months. Basically, all the video games released in like the last week. And all of us on the podcast kind of went off in our separate directions to try to cover and play the majority of them. Last week, we were able to talk a little bit about Eiyuden Chronicle because that's just how the embargo and the podcast schedule lined up. So I know a lot of us are still working our way through that. I'll just go ahead and talk about up on the site. Josh and Adam have been writing up a bunch of guides. I'm about 20 hours into the game myself. We have a lot of people playing the game on our Discord channel. So a lot of people are playing Eiyuden. We've also had the release of Stellar Blade. We're going to be talking about that on the podcast. Sandland just came out. I've been putting some time into that. And then a few other ones that may be a little bit under the radar, but Megaton Musashi, its worldwide release, came out in the last couple days, as well as a VR game that we want to talk about, Soul Covenant, something that James has been poking at. So in the last 7 days or so, we've all kind of gone off in our individual directions. Oh, and I almost forgot to say SaGa came out. SaGa, we have a review up on the site for it, but we're probably going to table the discussion there until more of us have a chance to play it, because we got a substantial look at the game with the demo that released a few weeks back. But we have people playing that as well, so that's going to be basically us at RPG Site. Probably you guys as well listening.
There were 2 other RPGs that came out this week too.
Oh, what are you talking about?
Class of Heroes 1 and 2 got re-released.
Yep.
There you go. There you go.
It keeps coming back.
Yeah, if you want to stay up to date on all RPG releases, you should check out the RPG calendar at RPG Site.
I guess before we move forward, it's not an RPG, but I do want to mention that Assault Suit Lenos 2 finally got an official English release this week for the first time in 27 years.
Can you believe it? You don't have to play the
fucking,
Sega Saturn version anymore.
It's fucking amazing. Like I know it's not an RPG, but man, that is just like that is like a low-key historic release.
I love the first game.
Yeah.
The first game had like a stupid name change in America.
It's like Target
Cybernator?
It's like Target Assault Earth or something like that.
I think it was like Cybernator, I think it was.
Maybe it was in a different territory. I know in America it's like Target Assault Earth, I believe. But yeah, just wanted to mention that's a really fucking cool thing.
Also, the Fallout 4 next gen update release, and apparently is broken.
Okay.
Like it's not like it doesn't work on PlayStation 4 or something. And of course on PC, people's mods are broken. So if you're playing Fallout 4, good luck, Godspeed. Hopefully that all gets sorted out.
Honestly, it's like, who could have seen this coming? There's never been this has never happened in Fallout history.
And when I downloaded the game a few weeks back, and I talked about it very briefly, and a few of the option toggles, like weapon debris, just don't work on modern NVIDIA cards. Like apparently those are still broken.
Oh damn!
Like, yeah, my 2023 graphics card can't render 2015 weapon debris. Just not allowed. But hopefully that gets all sorted, so that everyone's mods and everything works again, because that's a bummer. But to start out, I've just listed off a litany of games here, and we are going to open up the discussion with, any guesses? With Stellar Blade.
I mean,
you guys know.
Oh, I thought you were asking us. I'm like, we have the doc in front of us.
That's true. But yeah, we're going to open up with Stellar Blade. So a little bit of introduction here. We do have a review up on the site. Josh Tolentino wrote up the review for Stellar Blade and published it a couple days ago at the time of recording. We did talk about it very briefly when the demo came out about a month back. But for this week, Chow has been putting a bit of time into Stellar Blade. You mentioned before we started recording that you're about 8 hours into it.
Yeah, I'm about 8 hours into it.
So we're going to go ahead and hand the microphone off to you and just say, so Stellar Blade, for those that didn't hear the podcast a couple of weeks ago, just tee us up on what this is and your time with it so far.
So it is, let's see, it's a Korean action RPG developed by Shift Up. I think everyone knows them for their gacha game at the moment, the Nikkei Goddess of Victory. And there's a lot of controversy about this game, all because of the skimpy outfits and all the censorship going on. But I don't really care about that. I came in for the gameplay.
Well, there hasn't actually been censorship though.
That goes down to the definition of everyone's like what censorship is. We're not going to get into it. You can find it all over the internet.
We're not here to talk about it. I'm just here to talk about what
Yeah.
this game is.
Yeah.
So, like, I have a decent time with it. I like to call this your baby's Dark Soul. It is literally like an Elden Ring meme. Do you remember that time when Elden Ring first came out and all these devs were like bitching so hard? It's like, man, if that game had all these quality of life features, this would have been like perfect or something like that.
So like you're referring to like
the Horizon Forbidden West devs that had the really honestly, like to a certain extent, almost xenophobic like takes on like Elden Ring's design. It's like, bro, what are you saying?
It's just one of those things that like Elden Ring presented itself in a very like kind of almost bare bones style of the way that like it kind of like
this is
like
the
opposite
opposite
the game.
Yeah, this is like the opposite of that.
Okay.
It's like a lot of attacks are very telegraphed, so you're like easily to dodge everything because I think the game is focused heavily on parrying and like dodges.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to the point that you're like, if you're like playing Dark Souls and you're like coming to this game, you're like, holy shit. It's like, am I so good at this game? Or
but even then, like, let's say like someone isn't like good at that stuff, and that's totally fine. There are like accessibility options in the game to like toggle. Hey, you can like see an on-screen prompt of like when to parry an incoming attack if you're having trouble with that.
Yeah,
we're not all god gamers like you.
Well, I'm not saying like I'm god.
Yeah. But
like,
you're a well-versed action. You played a lot of these action games before, so it feels second nature to you. And
it's like you usually like able to kill like a boss within like the second try or fourth try or so because you're like, okay, so the first time you just got killed because you're not used to their patterns, right? And then the second time like, oh, I already know your pattern and you can easily kill it, right? I think the thing is like you're playing a Souls game, but then you have all these like tools from like different games that makes your character like super OP.
But here's the thing about Souls games. Like if you're like used to Souls games, that's kind of the same deal with Souls game where it's not like you're not taking like an absurd amount of tries to really get through bosses. Maybe they're like for early ones. But it's still like kind of like I'm very familiar with Souls games, so it doesn't take me a lot of tries.
Yeah, in every game, if you know all the builds, like, yeah, it's like the tries, like, if you know what you're building, it's like, yeah, you can easily overcome these challenges, right? But I guess what I'm saying is, like, because the progression is more linear, or
linear,
that you can kind of figure out what to do immediately, right? While in other games like Souls, like, you need to solve that build outside of the puzzles for yourself, right? Because the skill tree is right in front of your face. You just put points on what you want to upgrade, right? So.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you went to Souls as your initial point of comparison and not something like Nier. Is Souls the more adept comparison?
Yes, it's more focused
on.
It's more like I think a lot of people compared this games to Souls than Nier, but you have like all the tools.
For me, this game is more like Lies of P, more so than Souls. I know Lies of P is definitely derivative of Souls, but has its own set rhythm that is different from Souls. Like I think in Stellar Blade, you feel more. It pushes more aggressive playstyles, while in Souls games you can be very defensive and still come out ahead. While in Stellar Blade, it pushes aggressive playstyles because of your resource management to activate skills and because of your stamina or I forget it's not the stamina bar,
shield. It's called a shield bar. Yeah, it's a shield bar. So the thing is, if you successfully like parry, you can like deplete like enemies like shield gauge, so they will start to take more damage from there. And then there's like a little diamond below their shield gauge. So if their diamond is exhausted, you can start to do like a visceral attack of some sort. I think they call it. Ooh, I forgot what they call it. So you don't really see it too often. Because
yeah, it's like retribution.
Yeah, retribution. That's it. Like, I love calling it visceral attack. That's what I know it for, right?
Yeah, this game has weird terminology because like even like when you get them to that state, it's called the groggy state for the enemies in that game. And it's like okay, all right.
But yeah, I would say this is like a perfectly good game to play if this is like your first Souls game, where it's like if you want everything to tell you where it is, you have like this drone, which is Adam. He will tell you exactly where you need to go. So every time you press the button, the drone will tell you, oh, this is an objective you can pick up. This is, everything is like pointed to you if you turn the drone on, right? So that's kind of like the basic structure of the gameplay. It's this Souls-like more than Nier-like, even though
it's also I can kind of see where you're coming from. Like if you want to like have this be like kind of your entryway into like kind of almost that Souls play style or Souls genres, because this game also only has like one weapon that you focus on upgrading. You're not doing like different sets of weapons. Oh, what's gonna be like, what weapon will I be comfortable with? There's a very, hey, you have this sword,
one build and that's it, and you just
Yeah.
focus on making it stronger. Well, you come in like, I don't know, let's say Elden Ring, whatever, right? You could have like 10 different builds right off the bat, right? And how you approach the games, what build you chose, right?
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, look at Sekiro. Like, this game is very, kind of reminiscent of Sekiro as well in that aspect. Where Sekiro, you had your sword, you had like you mastered like pretty much every fucking ability around that sword, and you had like other tools around like what consumables you use in battle and so forth. But for the most part, you have that sword, and and you play like you master the game systems to be successful at. You're not picking and choosing a build in Sekiro, for example.
Like, I think the only thing that throws me off guard in this game is because, like, you know how like a lot of games, if you successfully parry the attack, the enemy kind of stops, right? And you could just combo from there or do your like punish or whatever, right, it is, right? This game is that every time you parry successfully, the enemy usually does like a free chain combo. So you parry the first hit, you thought maybe you can counter, but no, they follow attack immediately. So sometimes you just don't know when to like stop parrying, right?
Yeah, that's very Sekiro as well. Once you get to like the later boss Sekiro, they have very very specific like patterns that you have to parry pretty consecutively.
So
To
I think
just
that's the only thing that throws me
It's
off guard, right?
it's been a while since I played it, but for me, my brain's going Metal Gear Rising. Like that's why
uh-huh.
Terry might
Yeah.
have worked, but it's been a while, so I might be forgetting the details. But
Yeah,
that's what's coming to mind.
that's a long game. I don't remember too much. All I remember is the greatest last boss of any video game ever made.
Yes.
It's very up there. Yeah. But so like tell us a little bit about kind of we've seen like what the demo had to offer. Like the premise was like, hey, you're this female android named Eve, and she's like kind of diving into Earth along with her squadron. Most of them are wiped out to go fight off this alien threat. And then after like the first uh, like tutorial segment, it kind of mellows out to like only just be you and Adam for a bit as you're exploring around, and you're trying to deal with, hey, I'm kind of like the only surviving person left in my squadron. How has like the story and the narrative beats been for you so far? I know you're not done with the game, but just you're quite a ways into it.
I think the story is the worst part of this game. I
Mhm.
don't think there's any redeeming parts of the story, to be honest with you. Uh, okay, so for me, for example, I imported a Japanese version, okay, because that's the only way to get access to the Japanese voices. I know people like say it's like, yeah, it's not even its native tongue. It's like, yeah, I get that, but it's also the cheapest version, and
Yeah.
the
I
Japanese
mean,
dub is actually pretty decent. So,
yeah, you don't got to justify yourself to us. You want a Japanese version? That's what you got.
When
but
I play, I'm gonna play it in Korean. So I mean,
I heard even the
Does
Korean
the
dub isn't
Western
good
release
either.
have Korean voices? Like if I buy the version at Target, do I get
yeah,
Korean
yeah.
voices?
The
Okay.
English release has Korean voices. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
But it's like, yeah, I imported a Japanese version for that. I think the aliens are called Alpha Native in Japanese. Like how it's spelled, it doesn't sound like what it's spelled like, but the Japanese call them Alpha Natives or whatever. So,
Yeah,
but
in English at least, it's like Natiba, I believe, is the what they call them.
okay. But yeah, so basically the story is not good. Every time you basically go to like a checkpoint of some sort, you'll have like Eve thinking like, "Hey, let's hurry up and get to the next objective because I want to kill this thing that killed this my friend or my commander." Like the girl that you see in the prologue, Tachi. Like
Yeah.
she just keep like every time you go there, it's like, "Okay." It's like, "I'll bring you there." It's like, "Okay." Adam is like, "I'll tell you about myself." And every time you're like, he's about to say something, and it's like, oh wait, we need to hurry up, or someone just interrupt this conversation. So you never get to finish what his character intention is. So it's like constant stalling, and you're like, okay, it's like, can you just hurry up and tell me the plot? And I think that's exactly what I'm getting from reading Josh 2's review. It's that the story is really flat until like the last quarter of it, where like they throw like a bombshell right at the end but that doesn't really redeem like the entire like part of the story from the beginning, right? So
there's basically like you're kind of going to this really for the action gameplay aside of it. It seems like the story is there to like give you an excuse to work towards something, but it's not necessarily the focus. Like as it said, like for example, like the easiest comparison is like Nier Automata, for example, where the story was very very memorable in that, and like and for some people, the action gameplay in Nier Automata took a backseat compared to like what the narrative,
yeah,
the strength of the narrative.
like this would be like the opposite, because in Nier you'll be like, okay, I came for maybe the gameplay, then it turns out the story is superior than to the gameplay, right? That's kind of like my experience with Nier, right? Here it's like it's more about the gameplay than the story. I feel the story is better in like when you're doing side quests. I think Eve is a lot more compassionate when you're doing the side quest versus like the main story. Her main story, Eve, would be just like she just focused on hellbending on revenge on finding and hunting the creature that killed her friend. While like if you're doing the side quest, Eve is just constantly trying to be like compassion, trying to help people, trying to build these androids a good name, because the people that are living in Earth, there's only like one city left, which is Xeon, and they're basically like bitter that they didn't get to go to outer space to live in like peace versus getting killed by all these aliens and shit. So they're like, yeah, they're just always bitter, right? So you find like humans like corpses all the time, and there'll be like documents, and it will be like journals of them like just ranting on how much they hate like Mother Sphere, which is what they call the colony in space. I think that's how it goes. But yeah, I don't think the story is the good part about this, right? But like, but most. Sorry, go ahead.
I was trying to find the original primary source. What I can find right now at the moment is from PlayStationLifestyle.net. Is that apparently Stellar Blade? This is according to the director, Hyung Tae Kim, was supposed to have like a story thread about Eve being really interested in like the lost fashion of the world, but that was ultimately scrapped, which is kind of like maybe like a silly premise. But I've seen people say like, well, it's better than the nothing that we got. Like it just seems like they scrapped some of their story ideas and didn't really supplement them with anything else, leaving it with the way that you and Josh Tolentino describe it. It's just kind of like a really flat, almost like very bland, nothing story.
Are there like any
It's
other
just flat.
characters besides Eve that like are at least more interesting?
I think the side quest characters are much more interesting. So
Okay.
so basically throughout the storyline is that okay, so you start with Adam and Eve, then you rescue another android that was trapped there for 2 years, which is Lily Artemis, and she becomes your kind of like mechanic. She starts to like build upgrades for you and provide other support kind of thing. But once you get to Xeon, then you meet all these like people that you kind of help out. Like the first side quest you do is this girl named Sue. Was it? I forgot her name. Anya. Her name is Anya. It's like this robot that's like damaged, so she couldn't sing anymore. So the bar is dead. So you try to like repair her so that she could sing again, so that the bar is back to alive.
That's an
right?
interesting premise. I don't know. That sounds
Yeah,
kinda
like I
fun.
said, the side quest is better than the main story. Like, there's the main story is really lame. It's just like, okay, you just killed like these big aliens to get their alpha core, and then you meet like this like prophet of the city, and he basically tells you you need to kill 4 more to collect all the core so you could go to this alien's nest or something like that. And I guess that's the whole main story, you know. But the side quest is where it's at technically, right? I mean, even Eve has way more personality when she's doing side quests. So at least that's my take with the
I
story.
gotta say that's not what I was expecting to hear, but it's really neat to hear because obviously we've talked about the side quest topic amongst many different contexts over the last year. So it's interesting that Stellar Blades seems to do that, handle that pretty well. Just on a game standpoint, like what sort of currency or progression or like what do you get for doing side quests? And I'm not saying that's the entire point. I'm more just curious, like what's the momentum for doing them?
Well, you get like what is it? You get SP, which is your experience points, and they give you like quest
Okay.
rewards of like certain like currencies. Like you need like certain currencies to trade in like upgrades. Obviously like certain upgrades, they're kind of like scattered throughout the world that you have to find. Like okay, so you could find like a corpse of android. If you examine it, you get like pieces to upgrade your like permanent like health or like beta skill currency, right? If you can find like dead corpse of androids. And sometimes it's like you complete a side quest, they actually give you that currency like straight off, right? The other thing is like I know like one of the biggest focus in this game is the nano suits, like all the outfits that Eve can wear. The thing is that even if you do find the outfits, you still have to craft them, like get the materials to make them. So, right? It's like it's not
Are the
given to you
outfits
immediately.
entirely cosmetic, or do they have bonuses like attached to them?
Except for the first one, everything is cosmetic except for the original naked suit or whatever you want to call it when
The
you
skin suit, I believe, because you don't have any shield bar on it.
Yeah, once you use that, you're basically asking to get killed in like 2 hits if you want to wear that suit, basically.
So I mean, there you go,
So
Cha.
that's
You're
like
saying,
naked
you're
no
saying
hit
this game's so
armor.
easy. I can parry everything. It's like I can do this blindfolded. All you need
There's
to
a
do
hard
is-
mode when you beat it, okay?
that's what you said. So I like, okay, so we're talking about that where the action gameplay. This is where the game shines. So are like the boss battles or the enemy encounters like interesting, like to kind of supplement this? Like, are there like any like unconventional bosses that like you fight in like kind of weird untraditional methods to really add variety to it, or is it very just like, hey, learn the patterns and you'll be fine?
They do recycle like certain bosses. Like that first boss that you fight at the end of the demo, you actually like fight like a strong Russian again. And, like, but that is like kind of like a side quest area technically,
Okay.
right? But a lot of the time, this game structure is it kind of reminds me of like Resident Evil. You're like go to the location, you have to like solve these puzzles by finding key items to get to the next place, right? And then once you get to like just like halfway there, you fight like a mid boss, which is just like a new enemy variant, so that you know its pattern, so that you're kind of like more prepared for it if you see it later on, right?
Mhm.
And then after that, you find the main boss, which is kind of like it's just like fighting a normal enemy on steroids. Now they have all these cool attacks and stuff, and now you can put your whole kit to use, right? Because I feel like you can't really use all the tools that you have because there's just like so many tools that Eve gets. Like by the
Right.
by later on, there's something called Blink, where if you see like her slash, like her sword like flashes like blue, then you hold like the up analog stick and O. O is like dodge button, and then
Yeah.
she like blinks to like the enemy back, right?
Yeah,
And there's
yeah.
like the opposite of that, where you hold down an O, and you
Mhm.
do the exact same thing, but you only do that if you see a purple flash instead of like a blue flash, right? And that thing is
Right.
called repulse. I think that's what it's called. And then there's like perfect dodge counters, like all that stuff. She has all the cool tools from all different characters, all thrown in here. So if you don't like maybe I don't know the jank movement that you get from other Souls, like she has like the Devil May Cry near movements in her, I guess, right?
I
Well,
wouldn't say, yeah. I don't know if
the
I
adjective that we
really
used.
go for
Sorry,
it.
the adjective that we used during the demo was sticky. Like, do you feel that? I was curious.
I heard that they fixed the input lag in the first patch, so
Okay.
people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was already a first patch that patched out this one of the shop names, right? So,
Mhm.
so yeah, that fixed the input lag. Apparently, people said that in the game had a lot of input lag when they were playing the demo. I didn't really experience that. I know it's like certain parts does feel like kind of weird. Okay, there's like this one puzzle where I was trying to solve and I kept pressing down on it, but your down button on like the analog stick is like throwing your grenades. So my character like threw a grenade like right after the puzzle's done. I'm like, why? Oh, it must be like an input lag or something. Well, I was guessing, right?
Yeah, it's
But
like kind of like it, like when people refer to like older action games as like dial-up combo because they input the sequence and then like after they're done with that they actually see that unfold on the screen because of the input lag. Wasn't that great back then for action games.
yeah,
So I'm glad that like like that portion of it has like I'm sure it's like it's still there, but at least mitigated to some degree. Um, so I mean that's always a good thing of making your action game feel better. I think that's just a net positive.
yeah. If your input lag is there, it doesn't feel great, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like why I'm feeling with this game. I feel like you're just here for the combat, but if you're not engaged in the combat, like my friend does not like this game at all. Not because the game is bad or anything. She just finds the game too easy. Like how like she says that there's 2 games I dislike this like for the past 2 years: FF16 and this game for being too easy.
uh, I know there was also in some of the trailers that like Eve gets a gun. Did you get a gun yet? And
Yes, I get a gun. Basically, once you get the drone upgraded, you basically hold L2 and then you can fire your gun, right?
Does that like mix up combat in any meaningful way?
I
Do you
don't
like
think the
switching
gun's that good. It's like you have
Really?
limited ammo and it doesn't refill when you when you go to a checkpoint, right?
Oh, you have to like craft like bullets
You had to buy
manually.
bullets, or you
Oh,
had to go
okay.
back to Lily and talk to her to get the bullet refilled. Or a certain like checkpoint has like a bullet refill shop. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I don't use the drone that much. I feel it's kind of pointless unless you're like trying to fight snipers or something. Like there's like these machines that would snipe you, and if you get hit, you lose like 75% of your health.
I know there was also a mechanic, like at least in the demo, where there are some enemies that can turn invisible, and you have to like scan them to see them. Are there like any other like gimmicks or tricks like that with any of the other enemies?
Let's see. Other tricks. Not from what I encountered so far. Most of the enemies are just kind of like what you see at the beginning, right? Then later on, there's like a horse type kind of whale. I don't know how to describe it. You know, it's like
Uh-huh.
the hammerhead whale. You know what I'm saying? Or
Yeah, yeah,
hammerhead
yeah.
shark, but with a horse body.
It looks like an animal. You
Right?
listed
Yeah.
like 10 different animals. Like, yes, it looks like an animal.
Yeah, like the monster design's pretty unique, I would say.
That's cool.
Like the like first major boss that you fight, it looks like a giant a giant titan, but with like a
It
giant
reminds
wing.
me, yeah, it reminds me a little bit of Code Vein, the way that does enemy design.
Okay,
and stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
never played it, but I heard good things about that game.
Mhm.
So
So I mean, I guess in general, like this game has received generally positive reviews. You know, I think people have agreed like this is a pretty solid action game. It has faults, but you know, it's pretty solid all around. And for for whatever it's worth, this is Shift Up's first like major console game. Up until then, they've done mobile games such as like Destiny Child and Nikkei. So on some degree, like this being their debut title on consoles is pretty damn impressive.
you know what's
Just
the most impressive thing in this game? I think
what's
this
up?
graphic is amazingly good. I think it
Mm.
looks one of the best game ever, and it didn't really dip FPS unless you like I don't know aggro 10 mobs together and try to like AOE them.
Yeah,
But I
but
like never see like a frame drop.
what mode do you have? Do you have the performance, balanced, or
I just
quality?
left unbalanced,
Okay,
and I
okay,
never seen the frame ever dip like once ever,
yeah.
unless I did what I said earlier. Like you try to aggro like 10 mobs and try to like AOE them or some shit, right?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Digital Foundry's video they did for the demo, they said that balance was mostly locked 60. There were some dips to like 58, 57. So if you're using a monitor with a variable refresh rate, you're probably not even getting to notice the dips most often.
Yeah, so they did like a
And
really
I didn't
great
watch the
job with
Digital
that.
Foundry video myself, but I saw the response seemed to be that they were really glowing on the presentation and performance of this game.
Like for the first thing that you get, that's really good. And I know a lot of people complain about the outfits and stuff, but you get all of them for free. A lot of games would be charging you $5 for like one extra outfit. So you get like I don't know. I think there's like 40 outfits in this game. I think one of the hardest outfits you could get is like to collect all the cans.
Oh yeah, I saw. So I was looking in one of our Discord channels, and I saw Josh post a bunch of screenshots of
Oh,
Eve holding up cans, like Link and Zelda finding an item out of a chest. So
I was the
extremely
one that posted the
convincing.
kids.
I love how they're just like all like energy drinks. It's really funny.
Yeah, she's like, what are these things? Like, oh, they're like relic of the past. It's how humans used to fill up their electrolytes or something. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
It's like, we'll give you something good, you find them all. It's like, okay. And there's actually one
Oh,
outfit that you had to find all, like, I think like 46 of them or some shit.
that's kind of cool though. I love how I said, "Oh, they're all energy drinks," and I scroll up and it's like, "That's just a fucking beer."
Nice.
I saw Paige joking like cerveza crystal one of the beers.
But
Nice.
yeah, I mean, just well, thumbs up or thumbs down? Chow.
I think it's a thumbs up. If I was
Mhm.
reviewing it, I would probably like current impressions probably 8. If it has like a good story, then it's probably like a 9. It's just like the story just kind of held it back a little bit, and
Yeah.
if you never played like a Souls game before, I think this is like the perfect starting point because it's like once you're like play this, and you're probably like could branch on to like a real Souls game, I guess where like no instructions. You figure out everything yourself, kind of thing, right?
This is very guided. It's not like a revolutionary action game. It's not like doing something like that's never been done before. But it seems to be, a pretty damn solid one for people who are looking for a new action game to play.
Yeah, like I would definitely recommend it.
That's cool. That's cool.
It just sounds like it's really polished, good presentation. I was surprised to hear about the questing design. Seems to be pretty good and interesting, and yeah, just held back by maybe like a bland story.
Oh yeah, and of course, like a lot of the praise for this game is also the soundtrack as well.
Yeah, it's very near like. So I think I like the underwater city. I think I'm not saying it's underwater, but the city's completely sunken. If you get what I'm saying, right?
Mm.
Yeah, I like the music there. It's like it's all near. Like it's like I'm not sure if they got the same composer team or they just copy inspiration from it.
I think there's like multiple composers. I think they also have an in-house composer. I think they also got they didn't get Okabe, but they got I think some of Manak to contribute some tracks for the game. That's what I heard, but I could be wrong.
It's like if someone told me if this was like near free soundtrack, I would totally believe you. I didn't get to see what the picture was, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Thank you, Chow, for leading us through your impressions on Stellar Blade. And we do have the review from Josh too up on the site at rpgsite.net if you want further reading on Stellar Blade. The second game we're going to talk about, as we kind of teed up at the start of this podcast, is another game that released in the last couple days, and that is the worldwide release of Megaton Musashi. So Josh has been putting some time into this. And remind me, Josh, this game originally appeared a few years ago as a Japanese exclusive title, and then this is a worldwide release under the name Megaton Musashi W Wired.
Yeah, this was the original release of this was let me go check real fast. 2020 no, was I forgot. It's like 2021, I believe.
2021, according to our website. Yep.
Yeah. So this is like Switch exclusive. Or no, this is Switch and PlayStation on in Japan only for its initial release. And then like I don't know what happened, but like I think it was the following year later they get like released a Megaton Musashi X, and that was like it was like the same game but with more content, but it was free to play now. So it had like it had like paywalled features, and then well, I don't know what happened to that. And then fast forward a couple of years, and we're here with Megaton Musashi. We are wired, and it hasn't been really been marketed that well. To be honest, I don't think a lot of people even knew this came out. The level 5 presence in Japan is fine, but internationally, not great. I think they closed their U.S. branch like several years ago correctly. So it's been kind of a weird situation on the release of this game. Regardless, I put like I want to say over 10 hours now into this game. I think. How do I best describe this? Hold on, before I do that, I want to paint a picture of what this game's premise is up until the first mission. So, I won't. There's not big story spoilers because it's like up until the first mission, but there's a lot of info in it. So when you hit new game on this game, you go into a tutorial on what the battle controls are for the giant robots that you'll be controlling. So you're done. You get done with that. It's a fairly basic tutorial, and the context of this was you were playing an arcade game over in town. You play as this guy named Yamato. He's like the main protagonist, and you get into like a real life brawl with another dude named Ryugo because you kicked his ass at the video game in the arcade. So you take down him and his gang. It kind of gets into a big ruckus across the street. There's a mysterious guy in glasses nearby that's kind of looking in on this fight, and this fight is broken up by the police. You get arrested like immediately at the beginning of the game. So you're put behind bars, but this mysterious glasses guy, his name's Teru. He bails you out of prison. Like he's just there. He has the key. He says you're free to go, and you're like, and he's like a student like you, pretty much. He's like the same age as you. You're like, okay, I guess. So you head on over back to your house. As this is happening, the scene switches over, and it switches over to these two people in this hotel room, um, and you find out very fast that they're uh, part of the alien race that's kind of presented as the enemy faction in this game. One of them is like the princess of this alien race, and they're looking out the window to find a candidate that they can possess. Um, so this princess possesses this student named Asuna, and in order to integrate herself into like human society and find people to assassinate because they might become potential pilots, that they can somehow discern like certain people that might be potential pilots, pretty much. So you see this completely innocent woman get possessed, and she's now like kind of under mind control. Um, so flip back over to Yamato. You go back to his apartment, and he looks over at a picture of like his family, like and specifically his little sister, and he keeps getting like weird like flashbacks or memories, but like he can't really remember. He's like whenever I look at this, I feel really sad, and I don't know why. And then all of a sudden, another classmate of his name Kyoka, like checks in on him over at his apartment, and he's like, and this conversation is basically, man, I feel like everything's so fake already lately, and you're like, what? She's like, later. I'm like, okay, I guess. So, you exit Yamato's apartment, and you just go back to town. Um, as you're going to town, you see Asuna trailing behind him with like a dagger, ready to fucking shank him. Right before she does, Yamato runs into Ryugo again, and so Asuna, who's now possessed, like backs off. It's like, oh no, there's another person here. I can't. No one can. No, there can't be any eyewitnesses. That'd be crazy. Um, you meet up with Ryugo. You're about to go at it again, but Teru shows up, and he's like, hey, I need both of you for something. Meet me in the back alley. And you guys are like, okay, sure. You go into the back alley, and he springs like three big dudes on you out of nowhere. But Yamato and Ryugo, pretty good fighters. Um, they beat up the dudes, and Teru's like, hold on, like, it's, check this out. And the dudes that you fought are all of a sudden turned into like androids. They're robots. Uh, and you're like, both of them have never seen this. We're like, okay. So they initially get their asses kicked, but then they become like really fucking mad and angry and beat the asses of the androids and robots. And they're like, okay, now we're gonna fucking get at you, Teru. What the fuck was that? Right before they're about to like jump on Teru, Teru's like, congratulations, you passed. And you guys are like, what? He's like, come on over to me. You guys have passed the test to be scouted to basically become giant robot pilots against this alien threat. And you guys are like, what? So this secret organization, their base, one of the ways you get into their base is at the back of the arcade where the game began. Just take like two doors down to the back, and all of a sudden you're in an elevator that goes to an underground facility that houses all of this stuff. So when you're finally at that docking thing in front of the giant robot that you're going to pilot soon, you meet Teru's commander, Sayaka, and she basically reveals that this entire town and life that you've been living is fake. Everything is fake. The real truth of what has happened. There's all before the first mission, by the way. The real truth of what happened is there's these aliens they call the Dractors that invaded Earth and conquered Earth in under 48 hours, and 99.9% of humanity has been wiped out. And you guys are like, what? and so their organization is obviously to combat the alien threat and take back, their humanity and all that stuff. So this place that you've been living in is a shelter that they made, and all the people in it, outside of a few, like the people who are working the secret organization, they mind wiped everyone because the trauma and the loss was way too much for them. So, and they were just all in despair. So they mind wiped all of the remaining humans. So, like, they can still go on with their normal lives, or like what would be like the new normal in this like isolated shelter, and what they believe to be like, their home and everything. So, um, before, like, and this is like kind of like too much of Ryugo and Yamato. Yamato's like, I'm not a fucking soldier. I'm not getting to that robot. And so they're like, Sayaka is like, okay, well, you know what? We'll give you your memories back, and we'll see what your response is. So at that moment, there's like these two scientists that kind of drag Yamato off to like this what looks like an electric chair. Like they strap him down to this chair and then put down this helmet filled with wires, and he remembers the family that he once had. The flashback consists of him and his family watching on TV the aliens attacking, and then flash forward to basically his parents dying and his little sister dying in front of his eyes. And he's like, yeah. And then of course, after getting all those memories back, he feels like really fucking sick and angry and all that stuff. So he's motivated to fight the aliens. Amidst all this, by the way, the aliens are like they can't immediately like wander Earth. They need to like rely on like this drug to acclimate their bodies to Earth, and they're keeping the shelter a bay. Like they're not wiping humanity out because they're trying to find this thing called the boon of evolution from these humans to find a way to like kind of evolve their species or race so they can be accustomed to Earth's like conditions and atmosphere without having to rely on like basically a drug to do it. And that's the beginning of the game up until the first mission.
And about how much story is that in terms of like 20 minutes, 40 minutes?
There's about the first 30 to 45 minutes.
There's a little bit of Gundam in there. There's a little bit that's reminiscent of the starting parts of 13 Sentinels. I'm sure there's a lot of other ones that you can call up that I can't. I don't know, like the village. I don't know.
The fact that like within the first like hour, your main character is basically fucking. Would it be fair to say tortured almost? With that chair thing?
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, he did get dragged off and like kind of was kind of conditioned to become a soldier right then and there. It's like, well, fuck you. We're giving you a reason to fight. And if you can believe it or not, this game only gets more insane narratively. Beyond that, I won't say anything else. Like what else happens? I've kind of reached the point of the game where like the first big like major plot thing happened, and there were already other narrative building blocks that were insane up until that point. It's a fucking wild game. And I was trying to describe this to some friends, and I'm not saying that Megaton Musashi does this as well as 13 Sentinels, but when I think about like the narrative plot beats in this game and like what's presented to you, it's like it kind of gives out that same energy of like insanity and absurdity that 13 Sentinels gives you when it unveils new narrative beats to you. You're just like, what the fuck? And then like 10 minutes later, you're like, what the fuck? And it kind of keeps on doing that. And you're just like,
and I think an important part about 13 Sentinels is that it does this constantly, where it's like, oh, I'm starting to piece it together. 10 minutes later, nope, never mind.
yeah, it's just it goes into some really crazy places, and I think that's kind of like it kind of works to its advantage because like it's to me. What I was just kind of expecting like a very basic like, hey, beat 'em up action RPG. You can build your own robot, and I don't know if I'm gonna enjoy the story, but I kind of expect a more generic plot from it, right? I was like, just a reason to keep the story moving. And now here I am. I'm like, I gotta see what the next story thing is, man. This is crazy. Like I can't even believe what I'm like seeing, And there's like this point like I didn't even know what the target audience is for this game. Because when you think about Level 5 as a developer, they're usually more tailored to like children's games. Like they're very cartoon aesthetic, and they're very like kind of PG rated, like maybe PG-13 at times, but never like it's never as crazy or like not overly adult or mature or anything like that. It's usually when you think of like Yokai Watch, you think about Inazuma 11, and all that stuff. And this game is like it has a cartoon aesthetic to it. It has really really nice like especially the 2D like adventure sections of the game. Like it looks really really nice. It has that anime cartoon aesthetic, but like with some of the narrative beats in the game, like at some point, like there are just like people dying left and right, and you're like, what the is happening? I like it's just one of those. It's like I don't know who the target audience is for this because it's like on its face, it looks like oh, this is going to be a children's game for people who want to get like a simple giant robot mashing into other giant robot or into aliens type of game, and then all this heavy stuff happens in the story. You're like, oh, I don't think this is for kids. I really don't think this is for kids. Um, but it is a really fun, compelling action RPG. I think its first few hours, like within the first 4 to 5 hours, it starts off slow because you're kinda going into like the aspect in like I'll say like a mecha anime where you're finding out who are the next pilots for like your team, what are their backstories, where are they coming from, how do you meet, how do they come together, and all that sort of stuff. And that part of like the story and those and like usually the mecha anime genre kind of starts out slow and you're kind of getting introduced to the cast, but it becomes all the more meaningful when stuff starts happening because you've learned to like grow with these characters and see them develop and see what they become. And so in between like missions before like the main story mission, you're presented this like 2D side scroller walking around town talking to people section of the game, and there's like a progress meter at the bottom right corner, shaped as a robot that fills up, and basically says, "When this is filled up, your next story mission is now available." So it's more like just like kind of a bar saying like, "Hi, hey, how close am I to like the next like story battle coming?" Um, and I think the really wild thing about this game that really like caught me off guard is also its production values as well. Like there are a lot of unique NPC models in this game. They're like it's very you see very little duplicates in terms of like NPCs in this game. They all have very distinct, unique designs. A lot of it is voice acted. Like there's like an almost fully voice acted game, I believe, which caught me off guard. And the environments, like every single like environment like you walk into around like that adventure mode, it's like every single place you like enter, every single part of the town you go, it's all unique. It's all uniquely laid out, unique assets, um, and it's all very different. And it's like wow, they really put a lot of thought and effort into like really livening up like the visual variety you're seeing in this, and it all looks really really good, which really surprised me a lot. Um, when it comes to going into the battles, the stages themselves are probably the weakest part because there are very linear, small linear stages of hey, you just go into the battle, you deploy your robot, and it's basically you go from zone to zone, beating up enemies until the final zone. A boss enemy will appear, and then just go beat that up really fast, and all that sort of stuff. But along the way, it has those action RPG trappings of, hey, as you're beating up robots and finishing missions, you're gaining loot. Of course, you have that color rarity system of like, hey, green is uncommon, blue is rare, purple is epic, and orange is legendary, and they all have different ranks to it, and you're kind of just mixing and mashing parts together. You could have like different heads, like the head and core are like the same part, and then you have different like pieces for the left arm and the right arm, and then your legs, and then you can have up to 3 melee and 3 ranged weapons on your robot at once, and eventually you'll be deploying up to 3 robots out on the field that you can switch in between whenever you want in battle instantaneously. And on top of all this, there's like a shitload, probably arguably too much, many customization systems to like enhance your robot aside of just parts. You have like you can put mods on those parts, and then the amount of mod slots they have on those parts depend on their rarity. After aside from that, you have this motherboard, which is like basically like a map layout of like where you put your active skills and passives on all of your equipment, and then to unlock more of those passives and active skills. There's like this whole skill tree system that like you invest materials into like getting different nodes on them, and then outside of that, you also have like pilot points for the pilots. Where you can like learn them skills and you can do skill transferring. So like if you want to have like a certain skill from one pilot and equip it to another, you can do that. And it's like it's a lot of systems on top of a lot of systems for like but it really gets like, if you like to see the number go up, this is the game. Well, there's a really big factor in this game where you see a lot of numbers going up.
I think I saw the review calling
Uh-huh.
it Weeaboo Armored Core 6.
Yeah, I mean, it's not wrong in that aspect, right? I mean, like I think Armored Core does things like you'll see the impact of like what you put in Armored Core robots very more readily apparent. While this one is more diluted in the sense that like if I put a part and it's like a better version of this part, there's nothing like visually different about them that like you'll notice, except maybe like if I have like these dual blades and I get better dual blades, the only thing you'll see different about them is just like, hey, they might look different and they'll do higher numbers. But it's not like an Armored Core where it's like, oh, this might like this might have like a more agile move set, but it's heavier, so you might have to adjust some parts on your Armored Core to accommodate for that. While Megaton Musashi, it's like, go fucking buck wild. Who cares how heavy you are? You'll have a weight stat, but it doesn't really matter, honestly. And the gameplay itself isn't as intricate as Armored Core overall. This one's a much more arcadey, much more beat 'em up. You have like your melee strings and your different guns, but it's not like the melee combat is like super involved. It's kind of smashing square. Sometimes you can do a guard break attack on them, but it's not like a light and heavy attack. It's only just like a primary attack button, and the triangle button is like for switching either characters or equipment on there. So it's a really fun wild ride. I just think I kind of wish that the game, while the game's does have like musical tracks here and there, and it even has like unique vocal tracks at very key moments. Um, Running around town, especially the early section of the game, is a little boring because there's like no accommodating like background music to really liven it up. And you do a lot of this, like running around town for the first few hours in the game. It starts to ramp up more and more to the action section, but I kind of wish that like the pacing was more even um in the early section of that game. But once the plot and the characters come together, it starts to get to high gear, it becomes really absurd, really fun, and just like, and I can't tell if it's like very stupid or very brilliant, or if it loops back around to like it starts out very stupid, but it kind of makes a full circle back to like being brilliant because of how stupid it is. And that's not necessarily a bad thing either. Like I think there are some like character relationships in that game that's like, this is like really like funny to see play out, but then when something happens to like that relationship, you're like, man, that feels really bad. I feel really bad for these characters on how this shook out. It's I don't know. Like I have grown fond of this game. I can't say that like I was in love with this game like from the get go, but for where I am now in this game, I think I'm like fully on board with what it wants to do, and I'm really excited to see how it shakes out. It's just a really fun time, and it's not even to. I haven't really even covered like other like external aspects about this game that I think is really special about this release. When Level 5 was marketing this release of Megaton Musashi, they were like, "There's gonna be both crossplay and cross save." In between everything that's releasing out on. So it's basically all PlayStation 4, 5, Switch, and PC. And yeah, you have people, including Kite from our site, who are transferring their Switch save from several years ago. There are in-game resources to convert that into a PC save, so they can transfer their Switch save into the English PC release in that game, and it will work. And I'm like, holy fuck, that's insane.
That's really cool. That reminds me of when SaGa released Project Eva X in North America, which was only a few months after the Japanese release. They actually made it so that you could just like seamlessly go between, like, for example, I had the Japanese Vita version, and I'd finished like the quote unquote story mode there. I transferred my save over to the PS4. I was able to play it there, and I was able to transfer it back. So it sounds like a more extreme version of that, or I guess it's maybe just one way, but still, like, being able to do that at all, it's like you don't see that very often, and it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I was genuinely shocked, and it seems like Level 5 has really like gone all out for like kind of making this like, they really want to push this a game, like put its best foot forward with the release of this game. It's tough because they didn't market this game at all, and they didn't send out review codes either. So.
Yeah, and the thing is that we even had, from my understanding, we had the right contact information to reach out to them. Other outlets had the contact information too. They just didn't. Did they even like respond at all, or was it just total radio silence?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if what the situation is there, if they don't have the resource to like. Yeah.
So we had two contacts technically. There was the Japanese contact, which apparently was going to deal with some English media. They didn't respond. But then there was an English contact, an English PR firm, Heaven Media, if it matters. And they actually said, "We are handling review code and you are on our list." And then nothing happened. So.
This game will like pretty much live or die now solely by word of mouth. And I'm here to tell you, it's a pretty fucking good game. I think it's a really interesting game.
You got me intrigued, but I think what intrigued me more is those weird NPC names.
Oh yeah. It definitely like level 5 games, like even like in older level 5 games, they have like these really charming like NPC names. So like one of the NPCs that I love is like her name's like girl with like unique or unique ideas, and she has like really absurd lines that will like she'll tell you like it's like, I wish I could get fill a pool of stadium with people and like dump like an ocean of caramel onto them and then like eat the caramel while I'm in the crowd. And you're like, all right, I guess. Awesome. I think this game is like, it's really, if you really like very, very perky person, like full of personality NPCs that like will just like kind of say like really absurd things, or like be very like, there's something about the NPC in this game that's like, it's like very, very captivating. Like you'll have NPCs that talk to each other, and you don't know anything about these NPCs because of their descriptors. Like say, girl that is very into trends. They'll be talking about like a TV show that they're watching with another NPC, and that NPC could be like girl who stands too many characters. That character will be responding like, oh yeah, I love this character in the show. So like very like minor things like that. It's like it kind of adds more to the charm of like just like talking to NPCs like in general. It's not like it's like I don't really care about these NPCs, but it's funny reading what they have to say, I guess is the best way to put it, because it's very just kind of out there. It's like, okay, sure, why not? It's just it's one hell of a game. Yeah, I'm not really sure what else. There's like, I feel like I can say so many things, but at the same time, it would take like forever. I think
that's the game that had like a weird contest or tournament before.
Yes. Yeah. So this is like this once again. This wasn't really marketed at all, but on Level 5's official YouTube channel, they held like this like PvP tournament in real life against like different outlets that represent different parts of the world. So I believe like the gamer represented United States, Game Rant represented like the UK, and then different outlets from like that represented Japan, China, France, and so forth. They flew out 3 people from each of those outlets to represent them. I don't know if they flew out or people had to fly out themselves. I'm assuming people had to fly out themselves. I don't know though. And they got together and like tried out like the new PvP component in this game, like the team-based death match. And so they uploaded that tournament up on the site, and like that looked really like honestly pretty fun. Like to like if you had like-minded competitive people on like an even footing, like kind of going at it. It looked great, honestly. It looks like a 3v3 like point based. Like hey, you get points based on like by killing the opponent team, and they respawn and so forth. And then whoever either fills up the entire bar with your team's color wins the match, or like if by the time runs out, whoever has the most points wins. And like it looks like they had a great time over there. And like, hey, that's really fucking cool. But you know, but judging by like the viewership on it, it's like not a lot of people are either watching it or like are even aware of it, which is probably the
Yeah,
more
like
likely
we'll
scenario.
fly people out to do this thing, but not give like review codes to anyone. Like
Yeah,
you'd think just send out 5 review codes to 5 sites, you'd have more coverage than 0.
yeah, yeah.
I
I
probably didn't
guess,
even know this game came out until you guys mentioned it. Really.
And
and
you know it's real bad because I did tweet about it just because it's like okay, let me just say this to put things in perspective. Nihon Falcom, the company that still has at least a year's wait between a Japanese release of their games and the localizations, is officially more receptive to Western press than Level 5.
yeah, I hope they get their act together by the time their other releases come out later, like the
Second Police
Fantasy
and
Life,
Fantasy
Second
Life, yeah.
Police. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
It's and it wasn't just us. Like it
yeah,
seems like pretty much nobody got code. Like in that tweet, like one of my buddies who's an editor now at like GameSpot, like the tweet. So it's like, oh, I see. It's like, oh no.
and they've also they also released like a patch for like the Inazuma 11 beta that like addressed like it was made based on feedback. So also being receptive on that end of like what people have to like say about the current ongoing Inazuma 11 beta as well. So it's just like you need to. You're almost there, level 5. You're like you're so close. You just need to like kind of. You need a better strategy for like your
And
presence in the West.
to be blunt,
You're
it's
almost
like
there.
as much as I prefer they actually send out review codes so people can get an idea of what the game is before it comes out. If they aren't going to do that, at least like reach out to streamers or something, for God's sake.
Yeah, it's. I think they're they're just like, what do we do in the modern day to market? I think they're just all trying to figure it out.
You
So
forgot to
hopefully,
hire a PR team.
I really hope Megaton Musashi is successful. I know realistically it probably isn't, but god damn, I wish it was.
Yeah.
It's even a
Yeah.
really solid PC port too. It's like a really good PC port as well.
Yeah.
So fuck.
Yeah,
So,
I guess I can't say I am too surprised considering like I brought this up multiple times, but the fact that the whole thing where they were trying to pretend that all their games were going to be releasing at the very end of last year. Meanwhile, at TGS, I asked people on the ground about that at their booth, rank and file employees, and they were just like, we might need another year.
yeah.
And
So
it's like, if that's the type of like, I don't know if I'm making sense here. But
it's just like either way, like I don't know how much of Megaton Musashi I had. I think I still have a ton because this is also a game that's tailored. It's also a new release for Japan as well. So a lot of like the new additions to the game is like kind of almost end game focused. I believe there's like they just kind of expanded end game a whole ton. So like part of the end game is like 3 new difficulty modes to like progress through end game as well. That I'm like nowhere near close, but I'm already doing like a lot. The numbers are already very very high for me. I'm only going to get higher. I still have, and people have been saying like this will take about maybe like over 100 hours to finish. I'm like, okay, great, awesome. So we'll see. It's not like something that like I'm not like religiously playing it every day because I still have SaGa Emerald Beyond on my plate. I still have to get around to Sandland as well. And yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those games. It's like I'll be playing here on and off throughout the year, and I'm just kind of enjoying my time with it. And for people who, who've been looking for or who can't wait for Gundam Breaker 4 or just want like a new like action RPG game with a lot of giant robots and a lot of customization and ways to upgrade their attack power. And they're okay with like a pretty insane plot happening as well. I think this is a really there's something here. There's really something here.
Thank you, Josh, for going over your initial impressions of Megaton Musashi W Wired, which is the the global release of a game that's been really released in a few fashions, and now you're basically have a lot to good to say about it, and it seems like it's gonna go the distance in terms of how much you're gonna get out of it.
Yeah.
It seems like it's just chock full of everything you could want out of a game like that. The third game on our list, he brought it up in passing a few times, is the aforementioned Sandland. So Sandland is was a one-shot manga from the late Akira Toriyama, and then this was developed by Ilka and published by Bandai Namco. I did not have early access to this game. I just went on Steam, purchased it for myself, and started playing it last night and this morning. So I do not have history with the manga. I didn't know what to expect. I just knew that I saw some of the gameplay trailers, and very rarely do I look at a gameplay trailer and be like, you know what, that looks interesting to play. I'm gonna go play that game. Mainly because like sight unseen, based on only a few trailers. And this game, first of all, to not bury the lead, I am enjoying it a lot. But the first thing I will say is that it does give a pretty poor first impression. This game, for no reason, for no good reason at all, it starts out with back-to-back stealth sections. I'm like, why would you do this?
Oh my god, that is immediately a turn off.
Now the sections admittedly are short and easy, but still, I'm like, all right, action RPG, open world, lots of vehicles. I just want a sandbox, like literally a sandbox, and like just and some fun animation. And then like, nope, stealth section. I'm like, God damn it. But luckily it didn't last that long. And the stealth section is to get your first tank. So I guess like narratively it makes some sense, but like right at the outset, right back to back, there's two of them. Like, why would you do this? Um Also, I struggled with the PC port a little bit. I don't want to dive too much into the port outside of just the game impressions, but the port can be played either in DirectX 12 or DirectX 11. For whatever reason, on DirectX 12, I get tons of that shader compiling stutter. I forget what you call it, the engine stutter. And
Yeah,
if I went to
that's
Steam,
yeah, that's a pretty
go ahead.
standard issue with Unreal Engine 5 titles. Like I know that a lot of people like refuse to play Fortnite with the most recent version of it using DX12 render because even though it looks better, like even now, like whenever the first time you see anyone wearing like a new outfit, you're gonna get a shader compilation stutter, and that's after like Epic themselves, who make the engine, like tried to optimize it as much as possible. So it's like,
Yeah, so luckily there is an option to play the game in DirectX 11. So I did that, and the stutter is still there, but it's far, far less perceptive. However, when I play in DirectX 11, the menus like flicker for
mm,
whatever reason. Like there's some issue with transparencies. Like, so
yeah,
do I want stutter or do I want flickering menus? So I went with flickering
man,
menus because you're not in the menus all the time. But yeah, I was like,
sounds
hopefully
like a
hopefully they
game to
iron those
play on
things out.
Steam Deck because those those shaders will be pre-compiled. So that there's that at least.
So
Yeah,
okay,
I don't know.
I don't know the tech behind this, but how come why can't we get the Steam Deck's way of like shader or of compiling shaders on like the PC experience?
You can if you install Linux.
Oh, okay. So it's a Linux versus Windows thing of like Windows can't do that.
Yeah, so the way that it's kind of like a byproduct of the way that like the compatibility stuff works for Linux and like Proton and whatnot. It instead of using DirectX 12, it uses Vulkan. So technically, Vulkan shaders can be GPU agnostic, which means that if you compile a shader in Vulkan, it'll work for anyone that has the same, like, I'm not sure if it's just if it's driver, if it has to be specific GPU, but with DirectX 12, it's way more highly specific per your install. But with Vulkan, it's not. Like, that's one of the reasons why with emulators, any of them that use like Vulkan shaders, you can share the shader cache across different users because it's not specific to any one piece of hardware. And because of that, like on Linux, it's not just like SteamOS, but if you're playing something on Linux and somebody has compiled that shader already, Steam automatically caches that shader so that when somebody else downloads the game, they can just download that shader cache from the get-go. So that's less shaders for them to compile. So if more games used Vulkan, then we wouldn't have to worry about this, is really the thing. So really what I'm saying is we should all blame Microsoft.
Okay. Sorry, Brian. I had to ask a really dumb question.
No, it's fine, because like whenever I like play a game and I see it starting to hitch, I'm always like, oh crap, there's something wrong with my computer. Is my GPU dying? Oh no. Like, and then I go to the Steam
the
forum.
problem is Microsoft.
Yeah, I brave the Steam forums. And then people are like, I didn't play the demo for this game because it was there was too much other stuff going on. I'll just keep it at that. And people were calling it Stutterland and things like that.
I remember I'd installed the demo, and then before I got the chance of playing it, I saw people saying, "Oh, it has the shader compilation center." It's like, I am deleting this demo right now.
I mentioned this on the podcast a few weeks ago. And I played that. It's like, I lost Stutter.
So yeah, the PC port's not great, but when I play on DirectX 11 and I'm not in a menu, it's fine. It's 6, 7 out of 10 PC port, whatever. Anyways, so the game, I'm about 6 hours into it, maybe about like 3.5 hours of story, and then 2 hours of just dual bopping around the map, because it is very open world. It is in terms of like almost like a PS3 generation open world game, where it's like you have a map, you have very colorful icons where it's like, this is a checkpoint, this is a town, this is a treasure chest, this is an outpost, this is things like that. And right from the get go, as you open the map, this is either a completionist's dream or nightmare. Where in the very first like region of the game, it's like you have found 1 out of 146 treasure chests. Like,
no, no.
Luckily, you do have the
Are they
ability
marked on the map? Are the ones you ever?
No, but so not initially, but eventually you do get the opportunity to mark them on your map, and it only marks ones you haven't gotten. So, like in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, after you beat the game, it shows you all the caches that you haven't found.
Okay,
Similar to that, only you don't have to beat the game. So for those that are completionists and really do just enjoy like the vehicles and the gameplay, you're not going to be scouring how to get the treasure chest. However, there is a little bit of and people are going to wince when I say this, like a Metroidvania aspect to it when it comes to the vehicles. So, of course, with the marketing of this game, there's tons of different vehicle types and tons of different vehicle like attributes and modifications. You start out with your basic tank, which is like your battle tank, just your kind of jack of all trades, has good weapons, decent speed, etc. The very first thing you unlock is a jump bot, so a tank that can jump. That's the one with like the bipedal two-legged walker. And then you get basically like a buggy, which goes really fast, so you can like jump gaps. And there's been other things that I found where I'm like, I don't know how to access that. I bet I need a specific type of vehicle. So I can see that there's a treasure chest there, but I might not be able to access it yet because I don't have the proper vehicle to get there. So it does have that aspect to it, which I genuinely enjoy. Like, oh, I can jump now. I should go back to here, here, and here and do all the things. But the premise of the game is that it takes place in an area known as Sandland about 50 years after a world-ending war. And one of the most rare resources that people are fighting over is, of course, water. So that's how the game initially starts out. Is Beelzebub is basically ambushing a caravan of humans and stealing their water. Just the tone of the game is very Saturday morning cartoon. So, and I think anyone who looked at any of the trailers or has any experience with Akira Toriyama should not be surprised. but like I'm kind of enjoying it in terms of the fact that it's like these are demons, but they're harmless. Like they actually say like, oh, we don't kill any humans. We just kind of like keep them on edge and piss in their pools and things like that.
You play pranks on them. Yep.
Yeah, they're like imps. And even like at the very beginning of the game, when Beelzebub's going to his dad Lucifer, who looks like Dabura, because Akira Toriyama, to like for permission to leave the city. I need to back up half a step. I apologize. In order to leave the city, a human ex-military general named Rao shows up and says, "I need your help to find the eternal spring, the source of water. I want to help this land." And you later learn the reasons for why he's invested in that. And he's like, in exchange, I'll give you this old game console. And it's like it looks like a Sega Saturn, I think, but I think it's like not branded like that, of course.
Oh, it's fun. It's funny because like in the I think the Viz Media translation of the
it's
manga,
a PlayStation 6.
It's a PlayStation 6 on that one.
With Dragon Quest 12.
Yeah, it's like Dragon Quest 12 or 13, I believe, on that one, which is it's really funny. It's really good.
It's gonna be real.
Yep.
And to set the tone of the game, when Beelzebub goes to his dad Lucifer, the king of the demon town, for permission to leave on this adventure, Lucifer's like, sure, but by the way, when you do go to play your game console, make sure you don't play it in the dark, and it takes stretch breaks every 5 minutes, things like that. Like, oh, he's watching out for me, etc. Like, don't play it in a dark room and give your eyes a rest. Like, yes, dad, or whatever. And then you go out, there's a few stealth missions, you eventually blah, 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 you get your tank, and the game doesn't quite open up quite there, you can't fast travel yet, etc. You end up finding the town, and this is a key component of the game, very Suikoden, Eiyuden-esque, of Spino, and this is basically, you hear that this town has one of the last remaining garages in the area, so you can tinker, upgrade, repair your tank, etc. However, it's like a wasteland. No one lives there anymore, etc. But you're determined to build it back to its former glory. And you do side quests, you invite people, you eventually unlock new capabilities like a shop, a workshop, a trader. So very much kind of has that town building aspect to it. And it physically starts to improve and look better and have more NPCs as you improve it. So anyone that likes that sort of progression, it's here in spades, and it's enjoyable, and it's well worn. It's nothing new, but it's fun.
I noticed in the demo for it, there were like towers. How do the towers operate? Because I know you had to like get some mats, like activate a tower. Does the tower, like open up parts of the map or show the collectibles on the map? Like what is the tower situation here?
So yeah, there are towers, and the world map is divided into zones, and then each zone has like 1, 2, or 3 towers. So when you first unlock a tower, it will show points of interest near it on that zone of the map. Not treasure chests, but like caves, towns, abandoned buildings, things like that. Once you find all the towers in a zone, it like defogs the whole map. So there is a fog of war when you first enter an area. If you find a tower, just one in an area, it'll show you points of interest, like icons. Then once you find all the towers in the area, it defogs the map.
It's just
so
like
you'll have all the
almost
points.
like Rise of the Ronin. Like it's so close to it. Fuck.
Mhm.
Oh, there's so many
Yeah,
open world games this year.
and then there's like different tiers of components that you find, and I'm not that deep into it yet, but the itemization is good enough where it never really feels like anything is wasted. Like there's, I almost don't want to bring up Final Fantasy 16 and talk about its itemization, but this is like it's like the opposite, where it's like everything you grab, at least so far, it might fall off later, is useful because like you might have 100 raptor pelts because there's little raptors in the wasteland and your tank just annihilates them. But then eventually you can like synthesize that up into steel, and then like you can tier that steel up at the trading shop or whatever. So even like the most common basic goods, you can eventually tier up into components, parts, upgrades, etc. For your tank. So there's always incentive not to skip enemies to actually fight them or shoot them, which is I think pretty good. It keeps the world and traversal throughout the world map interesting. The obviously a key gameplay component are the vehicles. Each vehicle type has a different sort of primary weapon, secondary weapon, and I believe it's like chassis and engine. different vehicle types might have different things. Um, and of course, they have different capabilities, like I already talked about. And the items themselves have like the colored rarity, like, oh, I've got an uncommon jump bot legs, or I have a rare battle tank primary weapon, and those have different stats and attributes. And then individually, you can upgrade those to improve their range or decrease their cooldown or things like that. So there's a lot of tinkering without going into too much detail about using items to upgrade your armor, your offensive capabilities, things like that. One thing that's slightly it doesn't get on my nerves, but I could see it getting on someone else's nerves, is that there's a lot of chatter between the party, and I guess I should talk about the party a little bit. There's Beelzebub, there's Rao, who's like this ex-human general. There's another demon who just simply goes by Thief,
Oh
and
yeah.
he's just like an older thief, stealthy dude. He what a lot of his the party members kind of give you basically abilities that you can use off cooldown. You don't play as them, but like I have a cooldown ability for the thief. It's called like loot picker or something like that, where every few seconds I can have him like suck up any items and within like a radius of me and collect them. And then Rao, I think, has some abilities that can draw enemy aggro, things like that. And then I do also have Anne, who is the blonde character. She's your mechanic. She's not actually a party member because she basically is your mechanic. She's the menu that you go to when you are doing anything with your tank. So she might not become a party member. I'm not sure. But
I also just want to mention that even for the core story, and it's a game original character, and I believe also part of the new anime adaptation. But just like between Beelzebub, Rao, and Thief, like there that was even back then in the year 1999, or I mean 2000 this came out, or somewhere around there. Like this is a pretty unconventional party, right? It's like two old dudes and
yeah,
like a little demon boy. It's like you just don't really see that like kind of party composition, and that's really fun because like these two old dudes are always complaining about like, man, we're fucking old. We don't have to do this anymore.
yeah. So yeah, Rao and Thief are fun, and Anne's good too.
Mhm.
The big conceit early in the game is that Anne has a necklace that almost looks like a key that everyone is interested in, and no one knows why, and she won't tell you. So that's like I'm not clear what that is. Um, but there's a lot of chatter with the party to a point that it gets a little bit annoying. For
Hmm.
instance, whenever there's a high cliff, before I got the jump bot, Beelzebub's like, I see an item up there. If only I had a vehicle
No.
that could jump. And it's like that makes sense. But then after you get the jump bot, I have it. I have the capsule corp capsule that it's in. Even after you get it, Beelzebub's like, I see an item up there. If only I had a vehicle that could jump. I'm like, you do. It's right here. Let's get in it. Like, shut up. So there's
Okay,
a little bit of
after you get the item, well, at least shut up about that item.
no. He will say, oh no, yeah, sorry, I misunderstood you. Yeah,
Okay.
when you get the item at the type of the cliff, yes, he will shut up about it. But
Okay.
like if only I had a vehicle that could jump. I'm like, you do. uh, but yeah, what haven't I touched yet? Oh, there is this game has I really like its art style is really like pleasing on the eyes. It's not super well animated until like there was one very early cutscene that you could tell like was the quote full motion cutscene or whatever, the SaGa cutscene. But it actually looked really good. That had like really interesting like it sounds snobby or dumb of me, but like really interesting camera angles, longer tracking shots, not just characters standing in a circle emoting or gesturing. So there's a lot of that. Whoever the animation team, I don't know if they're drawing from manga panels or what to help guide the storyboarding, but it was really fluid. The setup here was there was like an aerial bomber that you're trying to attack with your tank. Now your tank could do some damage to it, but then the general flying the bomber was like, "Get right over it. Tanks can't shoot straight up." And you're like, "Oh crap, what do we do?" So Beelzebub gets out the tank, like goes to the front of it, lifts it up so that it's like on its back facing up, and then rows inside the tank and fires at the guy above you. It sounds silly, but like in the framework of the way that the story was presented, I was like, "Hell yeah!" Like go
Yeah,
Beelzebub. Just
yeah, that was
go.
like a really big scene in the manga as well, and like it's done really well. Like it's good to see that like they captured that moment because that's a really fun moment.
Yeah. And then there's the other intrigue outside of Anne's locket key thing is basically the royal army seems to have some control over the water supply, and they don't want to give it to anyone, even not just like holding it back from demons, but humans in the area too. They're basically holding on to it so that they can profit from it. And that's basically where I'm at in terms of the story. Is that the royal army caused this world to be desolate and shitty 50 years ago, and they don't seem to have any remorse, and they like it the way it is. And why is that? That is strange, etc. But yeah, I've been having a crap ton of fun, just like I said, doodle bopping around the map, trying out different vehicles, figuring out where I can get supplies. Because there's a lot of like creature specific supplies. Like, oh, I need crocodile steel. Where do I find crocodile so that I can get their leather and then I can refine that into steel? Oh, I saw that in some in this zone in this area. And the crocodiles are very goofy looking. They look like the what's the name of the crocodile in Peter Pan, the Disney adaptation? Oh, the clock. That's what they look like. Like imagine those guys
Oh, yeah.
scurrying across the sand, coming at you, and you're like, no, I just want your leather, like, or whatever, your hides. The demon designs are fun. There's a bunch of different ones. Beelzebub's design and voice is probably my least favorite, but he's okay. He's just kind of bland. I like some of the other demons. There's like a trader merchant who looks like who's the name of the white cat that's on the lookout in Dragon Ball? I forget his name. Uh, but there's a trader that looks like that cat who's a demon, and he sells you like the maps and things like
Is
that.
it
So he's like a
Corrin?
map salesman. Corrin, that's it. Yeah, he doesn't look quite like Corrin, but you can tell it's a white cat designed by the same person. So there's a vibe there. But yeah, this is like it feels like a game that should have came out 10 years ago, but I don't say that really with any disparaging connotation to it. I wish the PC port was a little bit better, but it's fine. And it's just a cozy game, and I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would. Um, Side quests are kind of a little bit more basic, but the fact that they upgrade your town gives me enough motivation to do them. Uh,
Yeah, it's been interesting hearing like how they made this to like how they adapted into a video game because part of the charm, well, for me, part of the charm of the original manga is like it's a very easy read that you can based on how fast you read, just like 30 minutes to like up towards like maybe 45 to 50 minutes. It's a pretty short manga, but it's a short but very sweet manga. So hearing like how they extended that out to be a full game, and obviously you saw like the new Forest Land section, so I'm just like kind of making like mental comparisons. Like, okay, so if that's what's happening at that point in the game, like about 5 hours in, so I'm kind of starting to like get a better idea of like how fast they kind of wrap up the Sandland core story before they get into the new story that extends beyond the manga.
Yeah, the map doesn't seem too like huge, like ungodly Assassin's Creed Valhalla, especially if you're not interested in the chests. Because honestly, most of the chests, by the time you get like even like a third of them in a zone, you've got enough resources that you don't really need to go for the rest. But you never know if they're going to have a blueprint or something that you really want to gather in them. So there's a little bit of motivation to find the chests. But like it seems like the sort of game where if you're not digging it, you can it seems like it could be a breezy experience, but I don't know like how long the story will actually take. But I've
Mhm.
been enjoying myself, so I've been okay like going off the beaten path and just being a little bit more exploratory. It's a sort of game that I probably like I enjoy it more than if I had to review it and rate it. I probably would be a little bit more like, all right, let's be critical of this. But like right now, since I'm not in that position, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna enjoy
Are
myself.
you telling me something,
Uh,
Ryan? I
yeah,
have to
it's
review
like
this game eventually.
it's like I can see the faults and I can kind of like um describe them, but I don't really feel the need to,
Oh
but I'm
yeah,
enjoying it
that's
anyway,
cool.
sort
Yeah.
of thing.
It's good that
So it's a cozy
they pulled this off because like traditionally like anime licensed video games have a stigma behind them.
I guess the last thing,
It's been getting
go
better
ahead.
over the years, but it seems to be a pretty solid offering to what they did here,
And
especially
as
after.
as could be kind of expected from the gameplay trailers, like, the on-foot combat is pretty basic, the vehicle stuff is a lot more enjoyable, but luckily, even like, when you're in a dungeon, you can get in a vehicle in most places, so, you're not really relegated to the hand-to-hand combat too often, and it's fine, it's not bad, but it's not good, it's fine.
Highlights usually the
Um,
vehicles first and foremost.
yeah. Mhm. But yeah, I decided to play a little bit of it, just so I had a chance to talk about it before this podcast, and like part of me is like, do I just finish Sandland before I get back to Eiyuden, or because I'm enjoying it that much?
What's your Eiyuden update? Where are you in Eiyuden right now?
I'm about 25 hours in. I just got the Rising team back, the CJ, Garu, and Isha. I got Marissa, and I visited that city, and I'm just now in the snowy area.
Okay.
I forget the name of the city in that region, but that's kind of where I'm at, like level 40 or so for my main
Okay.
party.
You'll be fine. I think you should play a healthy balance of both and play whatever you want.
Yeah, I don't usually. I usually am very much one game at a time, maybe two. And then now I'm kind of like Eiyuden partway through. I've got Sandland partway through, and I got my 5 hour head start in SaGa. So, and I've already transferred my demo save to that game. So I'm like, oh no, I'm juggling 3 games at once.
I decided to make a new save and Saga. I didn't transfer any of my demo. Because I wanted to go a route that like wasn't offered in the demo. So I started Sugnus's route, or however you pronounce it. Sugnus. Sugnus? He's
I don't
cool.
know, but
I love him.
yeah. So that's basically going to be my April and May. Is just those 3 games juggled. Maybe Stellar Blade if I get around to it.
Luckily, the May is looking quieter, much
Yeah.
quieter. So that's a nice thing about May.
The last game we've got listed here is another somewhat recent release, and not one we've talked about too much on the podcast, but anyone who follows James's Twitter has seen his saga on getting a VR headset set up and playing the game Soul Covenant. So I need a little bit of a tee up for this. When I saw that this showed up on the podcast list, I didn't know when it came out or like who was developing it or anything about it, but it only came out in mid-April, so not that long ago. What did you see about this game that made you eager to get the hardware necessary and try it out?
It's the spiritual successor to Soul Sacrifice. A lot of the same development team that worked on that decided to make a VR action RPG. And looking at the art and everything and the concept of it, I was pretty excited. I'm still playing through it. Probably going to have a review up next week. All I'll say is I'm glad there were other VR games I wanted to play.
Dang.
It is.
Oh no! So this is kind of a bummer to hear because I really like Soul Sacrifice. To people who don't know, Soul Sacrifice was kind of in that era where a lot of different game companies and developers had their own spin of the Monster Hunter formula. You had like Freedom Wars, for example, Tokiden, and all that sort of stuff. So Soul Sacrifice was one that really spoke to me because it has a very like dark fantasy, borderline gothic feeling to it. It was a very special game on the Vita, and I was. For much like you, James, very interested in Soul Covenant when I heard like just had some of the Soul Sacrifice alumni.
Okay, so as they've been marketing this as, it's from the creators of Soul Sacrifice, it's a spiritual successor. They haven't been shying away from that comparison. Yeah. So I think it's only fair to ask, since you like Soul Sacrifice, what would you say are the main defining things that make Soul Sacrifice such a good experience?
The boss battles and the way that you'd balance like the either going like the light path or the dark path, like building out your character and getting like cool power-ups depending on like almost like the going down the path, whatever path you decide to give your character.
Okay, so I will say the boss battles are the best part. The problem is that the majority of the game is not those boss battles, and the combat is okay. Everyone's seen those VR games where you just kind of like waggle around for like combat and whatnot.
Yeah.
Nowadays, when you're playing a VR game, they've moved past that. It's not just waggle. There's actually some sort of like strategy to it. There's like more elements to it. And the combat in Soul Covenant, no ifs, ands, or buts around it. It's not bad, but it is basic as hell. Which isn't inherently like a death knell, because Soul Sacrifice's combat was basic, but the difference with that is that Soul Sacrifice's combat, even before Soul Sacrifice Delta, was very reactive. You were going around like the maps, and like you exhausted a spell, you'd grab a spell from somewhere else on the map.
Yeah.
And in Delta, you had like certain things that could like imbue your other spells and whatnot. So you were constantly doing something slightly different. when you go into a battle or a mission in Soul Covenant, so the way it works is that you have your weapon, which conceptually is cool because it's built off of like the roboticized spines and like battle experiences and memories of fallen comrades. Like you look at the like the weapon design, you can see the spine is literally the core of the weapon. And it's got there is an interesting sort of thing where every weapon has like an alt mode. Like the first one you get is like a blade, kind of like an axe. But if you grip it with your other hand too, it turns it into a scythe and you get a wider range and it deals more damage at the expense of you can't use your left hand for shield or to suck up the crystals that enemies leave behind, which charges up your like kind of beam thing that you can use. And then there's also one where it's like an axe, and then if you like grip it, it turns into two blades. Conceptually, it's all really cool. And I won't lie, using the two like dual blades that come from the axe, very fun. The problem is that everything else in the game is such a disappointment.
Man.
The story. So here's the thing. The storytelling in Soul Sacrifice, most of it was through, slideshows is derivative. It had the storybook aesthetic. Yeah, it had the storybook aesthetic. It was basically a visual novel. Well, something akin to that. More like, visual novel is probably the best way of putting it. The problem is that that's also kind of how the story is told here, but the visuals for it are nowhere near as interesting. And there's a difference between having a Vita in your hands and seeing like a storybook on the screen and then you using your fingers to like actually turn the pages and basically being in the budget dimension and seeing a projector for a motion comic, not even a motion comic, literally just like a slideshow of stuff that happened in the story, and you get no connection to it whatsoever. And the thing that's so disappointing is that there's one actual cutscene very early on. One that if the game actually used cutscenes like that to show the story, maybe there would be something here. But the combat is all right, but it's basic. The mission structure is beyond basic. You have either, okay, you're defending this one thing, and then you just need to attack the enemies and prevent them from getting to the thing, or it's, oh, you want to kill this enemy in time before the time runs out. And it's like, it would be one thing if this game was like $25-$30. This is $50.
Oh man. How long would you say it is?
So I'm not done fit yet, but I've seen people say it's like 7 to 8 hours, and I'm about like 4 or 5 hours in. So it's not that I'm just missing stuff. Like if there's anything that I've missed, it would have come so late in the experience, it doesn't really matter.
Okay, and I'm sure how is that a good length for a VR game? Because I don't know if like the standards of the standard like VR game is like kind of skewed, or like maybe
Asgard's Wrath 2, which is a first-party Quest 3 game for $60, has a 60-hour runtime.
Okay, and that I know that's like super hardly regarded to as like one of the best games on VR.
Yeah, so. And it's like they've been selling this as an action RPG, and the thing is that it's only in the most basic sense. Basically, in between missions, you can use like the materials you get to upgrade your weapons and also upgrade your base stats. But the way that your stats are upgraded, you can upgrade your life, you can upgrade your stamina, which I believe handles how quickly your shield regenerates and also how quickly you regen health if you put away your weapon. You can upgrade the power of your special attack beam thing, and you can also upgrade how quickly it charges from sucking up those crystals. And that's all you can do. It's just a linear upgrade for weapons and those 4 main stats for your character, which isn't much. And it's like you can turn on damage numbers, so that's cool. And one neat thing you can do, but it's like it's neat, but also it's like you do it once per battle. It's like whenever you fight a boss, once you get close enough to them, you can just like bring your left hand up to your like temple, and it's like you're like scanning them, and you find out where their weak point is. And it's not like, oh, you need to constantly bring it up like it runs out. No, like once you do it once, it's like you just see their weak point for the rest of the fight.
Okay,
and it's conceptually the story is cool, but there's not enough of it, and the presentation is so threadbare. And also, one thing that's really weird, really weird, and this is going to be a nitpick for me, but I feel like for more people that would be interested in this is going to be a deal breaker for sure. A lot of the like the interactions between characters will be like shouts in the middle of fights. And they have subtitles, but obviously obviously you're going to want to have the voice audio on, because in the middle of combat, you're not going to be paying attention to the subtitles because you're trying to like attack the enemies and whatnot, or dodge the boss. Very early on, I had to switch off the English dub because for whatever reason, it seems like they've timed these like slideshow cutscenes so that the voice lines in English and Japanese have to be the same length. And that means that the voice lines sound perfectly fine in Japanese, but in English, sometimes like the English voice lines will be fine. Other times, like in the middle of the voice line, will just speed through it because it needs to be within the same length as the Japanese voice line.
Like fast forwarding?
Yes. And I noticed that and I was like, oh my God.
That's
really
disorienting.
I'm really bummed about this, man. I was really hoping I'd enjoy this, and it's not even like a bad game. It's just like, I can tell you right now, unless like even if like it gets really good at the very end, which I don't foresee it happening, the most this is getting is a 6, and I'm probably going to give it like a 5. It's a shame because there are legitimately great VR games out there, and it feels like stuff like this releasing and being one of the main VR titles that I feel like people that aren't into VR are even aware of. It just harms the way people look at VR, because I'm looking at like here's the other thing. Like when I mentioned seeing like these slideshows projected is different from having like, say, like a Vita like scrolling through like a virtual storybook that way. There's 2 VR games, Moss and Moss Book 2, where one of the conceits is that a lot of the story scenes are you're reading a book and the book is right in front of you and you see like the characters moving on it, and then you turn the pages to get to the next scene, and it's like you can do something like that in VR and have it work. But this just doesn't work at all.
Yeah, that's a shame to hear.
And it's a shame too, because you look at a bunch of the Steam reviews and the Quest reviews, and a lot of people have been saying the same things, and developers keep saying, "Oh, we put a lot of effort into the story. The story is the main thing we're focused on." It's like, yeah, I can kind of see what they mean by that, but also just not enough. Just not enough, especially not for the price they're asking.
Oh yeah,
especially not for a niche like this, where it's like, especially on like the standalone like Quest headsets, there's enough really interesting games that have a similar vein to this. Like there's this game Underdogs that just came out, which is like a mech, like you're basically in a powered mech and you're using it's like what's the name of that one Western mecha movie that came out like a decade ago? What was it called?
Pacific Rim.
Pacific Rim. Yeah, it's basically like you're in a smaller Pacific Rim robot, but you're doing the motions to have the I've seen footage of that, and I've seen it. That's like half the price and has way more to it. Man,
So what game are you interested in trying next now that you've got your VR setup all configured?
Resident Evil 4. Because that's exclusive to the Meta headsets, and I've heard that the VR version's really good. So it's
like regular Resident Evil 4 or like the remake Resident Evil 4?
Regular Resident Evil 4.
Okay. I forgot which one. If they both got a VR, or only one of them.
Both of them got a VR, but they're both exclusive to different platforms.
Oh.
OG RE4 VR is exclusive to MetaQuest. RE4 Remake VR is exclusive to PSVR 2.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's one of like 3 actual exclusives on PSVR 2, and 2 of them are Resident Evil games, because RE8 VR is also exclusive to PSVR 2. So that RE4 and then Horizon, and that's like the 3 PSVR 2 exclusives I can even think of. So, but Yeah, it's a shame. I was really hoping that I was going to enjoy this, and it seems like looking at some of the other reviews that I'm far from the only one that's felt the same way. So it's what a bummer.
Yeah.
What a bummer.
Yeah, didn't shake out. Can't all be winners, but
Yep.
that stings because a lot of people who have fond memories of Soul Sacrifice will have to keep it in their memories even longer.
Yeah.
Someone somewhere get us a re-release on the modern platforms.
Get a remaster on PS5. Honestly, like get that 4K 60, like spruce up the lighting and models a bit. That I'd buy it again.
I'd buy it again.
Thank you, James, for going over your initial thoughts on, well, I'll say initial, your primary thoughts on Soul Covenant. That was a fun extended games talk section of this podcast, talking about 4 recently released games, and we had 4 different people talk about their impressions on each. Adam, by the way, has just over the last week just been slaving away trying to catalog and categorize basically everything in Eiyuden. So I know that's what he's been working on in the last week. So if you're playing Eiyuden and you're wondering about recipes, treasure chests, anything, check the guides up on the site. I know Josh has also been contributing those as well, especially the hero recruitment guide.
Yeah, it's been a team effort. It's not me or Adam. It's like me and Adam have been collaborating very extensively on making sure that the guides are up on time and are accurate. Like, especially shouts out to Adam. Like, there were a few bugged heroes on release, and like Adam figured out, hey, here's how you get them. So we wanted to make sure, like, that people got like the best experience on recruiting the heroes at our site and making sure that they're all accurate. And there's ways to get all the heroes and not having to run into the bugs that might make them missable.
By the way, my walkthrough on the website, which is a bullet point walkthrough, because that's what I prefer when I'm trying to follow a walkthrough. I don't need you to describe everything in paragraphs. Just give me a bullet point. Has all the chests, all the enemies, all the characters. You'll get everything. So it's there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really fucking good.
With that, we'll go into the news section. A little bit of a lighter week on news, though there are a few big headlines here.
Before that, James put up a Saga Emerald Beyond review that gave it a 9, and people freaked the fuck out in great ways. Yeah, so just shout outs to James for putting up that review and really kind of highlighting it seems like he's really nailed it. Like, Emerald Beyond is like, if you're a Saga fan, you'll be happy with Emerald Beyond, because Emerald Beyond really feels like a celebration of the culmination of like what Saga's been through and for so many years.
I've seen some people imply that it's like, oh, so you shouldn't give a game a 9 if you think it's only for Saga fans. It's like, no, that's not what I was saying. I was saying that you'll be down for this if you're already a Saga fan. There's a difference here.
Yeah, and it's from your point of view, you're a Saga fan as well. It's like once again, a review is just one person's opinion, and you'll be fine if your opinion doesn't align with that. We'll all be okay.
It's just really funny that this is 2 Saga reviews in a row, 4.5 years apart, that I've had industry peers insinuate that I'm being disingenuous with my thoughts on the game.
How can people like Saga? They're so confusing.
and the thing is we're not saying you have to like it. Just a review is one person's hopefully well substantiated opinion. That's what it is.
Yeah, I've seen like multiple people that have like outright said like that they really respect that we give Saga like the time of day, and like especially with like Scarlet Grace and whatnot. So it's like, yeah, people that like these games exist outside of us, I guess. So you don't have to attack us specifically for liking a game that other people like.
But like, was Scott, who contributes to the site, writing a Saga review for another website?
I think he was
for his own blog.
Yeah, for his own podcast thing. So
because he was discussing it and he wasn't feeling it. We had a little bit of discussion. I think he ended up on a 7, and like that's totally valid. And in another universe, he could have written the RPG site review. Like that's,
yeah, I know that the CGM Connected review, a buddy of mine, Hayes, did it, and they went through all 5 of the character routes before writing up the review. And I know that they gave it a 7, and it's like, I mean, yeah, like people.
Well, they gave it the time of day if they went all 5 routes.
Yeah,
how
for
long
sure.
does it take roughly to clear one route? And I know that's
10 to 15 hours. You can end some routes a bit earlier if you do things that specifically kind of give you a short ending, like a Maya. If you I didn't know exactly what made it like caused me to end up her route like early, but then I saw Kawazu's tweet saying, yeah, if you collect too many cats, your route might end quickly. It's like, I see. Just ignore the cats.
Collect too many cats, your route might end early. Incredible.
Yeah, a game that I know many of us are eager to find time for in the next month. So, yep, we do have the SaGa Emerald Beyond review up on the site, rpgsite.net. The main headliner for news on this week is the thing we teed up at the end of the podcast last week, and that was ATLUS's, I forget what they title it, but their streaming event for their Metaphor ReFantazio exclusive showcase. And the key bit of news that came out of this that we were kind of expecting was a release window or a release date. And we did learn that Metaphor ReFantazio is releasing on October 11th later this year. Now, I'll just be honest and candid here. I did not watch the full 30-minute presentation. Did anyone here watch the full presentation? Because otherwise, I do have the press release and the cliff notes.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest with you. I kind of get to the point where if I know I'm going to play a game, I kind of just turn off from watching anything else about it. Same thing with the SMT5 Vengeance stuff, where it's like, I know I'll play it because it's a version of the game that won't run at like 20 FPS. And it's like, well, no reason for me to pay too close attention to it when I know I'm going to play it anyways.
Same thing because here's the reason why I watched it. I watched it because I genuinely like hearing like what the developers like have to like say about it, like pre-release. 2, I like summarizing things in like my news posts to kind of give a brief rundown of what was shown. 3, someone has to talk about it on the podcast to some extent.
I did not watch it at all because it's
sorry, you're welcome.
No, thank you, Josh. But there is one key thing that I wanted to highlight, but maybe I'll see if you land on the same place. And it's the one that kind of made the rounds in terms of people being either excited or disparaged about.
I know you're going to talk about this.
All right, no, I'm going to hand it off to you. What do you think about the ATLUS showcase for Fantasio?
So the one he's talking about is the ATLUS released the battle theme to Metaphor with like the normal battle theme.
That's actually not what I was going for, but that was number 2.
Okay, it's been very divisive when people hear this battle theme because at first it initially sounds like the SMT Strange Journey battle theme. It's very loud, boisterous, kind of grand with like very heavy on trumpets, and then once you hit a certain point in the song, you're in one of 2 camps. When the vocals kick in for the first time, you'll hear this very talented man yell a lot of gibberish. It's not necessarily of any like language. It might have some roots somewhere, but it's for all we know, I think everyone's been confirming this. Like, it's pretty much a made-up language. But much like how the Nier soundtrack is with Emmy Evans, kind of when she sings, it's not the same of an existing language. So the way that this man does it in the song is very, very fast as well. So either people think that that this is fire or that this track is on fire. You're either one or two. It's a very love or hate it.
I have not heard this battle theme, but I do know a friend of mine, and I know this person. He is not kidding, because he's not a big RPG fan. In fact, he literally says he doesn't quite really like RPGs much at all. But he'll play ones that he that are received well and whatnot. But he's like, he heard the battle theme to Metaphor, and he's like, that just unsold me on the game. I will not play it.
Has anyone
he
else
means it.
heard this? Has anyone else
I
heard
heard it.
it.
I think the vocal's a bit too strong.
Okay,
That's
so
probably-
Chow, do you like it or hate it?
Once I get past it, then I'm okay with it. It sounds like a meal despair if you could get over it. If you cannot get over it, then it sounds gibberish to me.
Okay, who else has heard it here?
I have heard it. I
Okay.
don't like it. I'll probably like if I'm grinding in this game or whatever and I have to hear it, I'll probably have second screen content. I'll be watching something else or listening to something else or turning the music slider down.
James,
because I
have you
don't
heard
care to
it?
hear that. Yeah,
Wait, the James?
he might have stepped out.
Oh, okay. Either way, so it seems like I mean, out of he hasn't heard it, but his friend is. we're gonna use his friend as his representation of his opinion for this. So far, so we have 3 here that are like, ugh. I am in the camp of I don't like it. I didn't like it. I tried to like it. I tried to like it.
Like if you can get over it, it adds like this really nice melody, it's like dun, dun, dun,
Yeah.
But if you cannot get over it, it's like what?
Exactly. Yeah, it's you're right. I'm with you, child. Like I think the rest of the song is like it's fine. It can get pretty great, but I think the lead up to it is like you're on a journey to lead up to get there. So
I'll still be at that camp. My most disliked theme is the Shadowbringers battle theme. It's like this really bad guitar, and you're like, "What the fuck is going on?" And there's a camp that really dislike it, and there's a camp that loves the battle theme. And people try to say that the battle theme is meant to be decisive because you're isekai into this different world. So I don't know. It's just meant to be foreign, I guess.
The one I think of is that boss theme from Blue Dragon or whatever.
That one's amazing.
Like Eternity or something like that. Yeah.
All right, what is everyone's favorite and least favorite battle theme in RPGs?
Oh fuck. The one that like normal battle theme, the one that sticks out of my mind is like one of my favorites is the Digital Devil Saga 2.
Oh yeah.
I have a weird one where it's like I disliked it after reading YouTube comments. It's like the Xenogear boss theme. It was called like In the Trench of Fire or something. I forgot what it's called. Do you remember the boss theme in Xenogears?
I do remember it, but I don't remember what it was called.
It was like there was like this like gibberish that you hear in the background, and the comments like start to make like comments. It's like that gibberish is saying it's like having sex in poison gas chamber, and you're like, wait a minute, I can hear that. Like what?
I can hear. Okay, I never heard that comment.
Like, it's like battle theme rude.
That's quite the description, but maybe they're onto something. How about
my favorite battle theme? I have a couple basic answers. I like Man with the Machine Gun. I like Mass Destruction. I also pretty much like most of the battle themes in The Last Remnant, which was I forget the composer's name. But he did a really good job on that one.
Look forward to his work on Visions of Mana.
Yep.
How about okay? So it's easy to like name ones that I like. I have to really think about ones that I like actively dislike because I don't really think about like the themes I like dislike a lot. Do you guys have like any of those?
The couple that come to mind are I'm not a big fan of like Trails of Cold Steel 2. It's kind of soft and like throughout the entire game. I'm not sure if it fits. And then one thing that also comes to mind is I remember the original Xenosaga. It's sort of like a calm, regular battle theme, but the thing is like there is no, or it's pretty rare for like there are no boss themes in that game.
Yeah,
it's just the regular battle theme again.
Yeah,
which is always kind of weird. Okay.
Man, I can't think of I can't think of like any ones I super dislike off the top of my head. I have to really think about it. It'd have to be like something like. It'd have to be like some obscure like RPG like Magna Carta on PS2 or something that like of a soundtrack I don't like. But it's something that I don't think about much either.
I think the Shadow Hearts 3 theme has some of that like mumble like dialogue that I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Language. It's like
Shadow Hearts has a couple of weird ones, but Shadow Hearts is also just kind of weird.
Yeah.
I think we come to the
It-
point that there's no bad music in video games these days. They usually get like a very good soundtrack.
I don't know about that. There are a
I
lot
don't
of
know
good
about that
soundtracks.
either.
Are you sure? I mean, I don't know. I feel like I always hear bangers.
Chow. Another thing I started playing this week was Kurono Kiseki 2. We need to get those guitar samples out of Singa's hand.
I forgot about Singa.
Oh,
We need to get those guitar samples out of his hand. The compositions are fine. The arrangements are bad. Why does he always go for the like sharp? I don't know how to fucking. It's like I think the first time, like sharp.
I think the first time I heard one of his tracks was like in East, what was it, East 8? Lacrimosa Donna.
Yeah.
Like one of the kind of event battle themes is like this really screechy guitar. I didn't know who was the composer at the time. I'm like, man, what is this? I think it's him.
So there you go. That's Singa.
And I want to be clear. He does make some good songs, but Jesus Christ, someone get him some new samples or something.
Man, you're just reminding me of like how much of a Kuro 2's like OST was like a letdown compared to Kuro 1's. Fuck.
I never heard Kuro 2's OST because I haven't touched it, so I don't know what
it doesn't have like a lot of memorable tracks, or rather really like compelling tracks compared to the first.
Yeah, I'm worried about Kai then.
Okay. James, you've already here. You're AFK. Have you heard Metaphor ReFantazio's battle theme?
Yeah, I tweeted about it.
Okay.
The chanting, man. Chanting.
Is it okay? Do you like it or dislike it?
I really like it.
Okay. So there we go. We're at 1-4 then on someone who likes it versus people who dislike it.
What? Really?
Well, okay. Adam sort of doesn't count because Adam hasn't heard it, but but his friend, a friend of his, like
a friend of mine was unsold on this game. He will not buy it because of that.
Yep.
Really?
And I believe
man, that's crazy. That is crazy.
New way of getting filtered, okay? Better than the fucking
Chow is of the opinion. It's like after you get through the chanting, the rest of the song is like gets pretty good. And Brian, you're like, man,
I do not like it at all.
I'm just like, I will turn it down and listen to something else.
So it's I just find it really funny, like seeing like the Great Divide when people hear that song. There is no middle path here. It's like you're either on board or you're like, I'm muting this when I'm playing it.
Anyways, Metaphor.
Yeah. Okay. Go
one thing I will say is that maybe it will be better if they make it so that the vocals don't kick in until you've done like a certain amount of damage to the enemy, because there's some games that do that, like SaGa, like the final boss on Diva's route actually has a vocal track, but the vocals don't start until she attacks. So that maybe that'll do something for somebody. I don't know. I like the vocals, man. You guys are weird.
Very weird.
Down.
That's it. Okay. We're so far off topic. Brian, what was the original thing you were going to say about this game?
Well, this wasn't in the actual presentation, but it was in like a Japanese Q&A afterwards. And that is that Metaphor will not feature romance with the social links.
Thank God. Now we got the canon route instead.
They said they might. I think they. Let me pull up the like Silicon Arrow's translation. I think they said like the story will feature romance, but it's not like
you're not like going out and like finding like new person, new people to date or anything. So I think that's fine. I mean, like if it makes sense in the context of the game's story, that's perfectly fine. You know, like for Christ's sake, your primary mission in this game is to like gain followers, get support throughout the land to become king. I don't think there's necessarily like something like, oh, I'm gonna go out and find people to date. You know, like you have a pretty specific goal in this game, and if that totally makes sense, that there's like not like any like multiple romance routes you're pursuing along this journey. I'm totally fine with that. You know, that's in some ways that kind of opens it up to like, okay, I'm interested to see how like these relationships develop, because they're consciously not going for like a romantic like ending with.
So. You know what I like about having just only one canon route if there's romance. There's a canon shipping, okay? Instead of like, now it's like, it's up to your imagination. Like Cold Steel games, we don't even know who the hell Rena ends up with because you can pick whatever, right? So I rather prefer just having
you mean having the storyteller write the romance? Huh? What a novel concept.
It's weird.
I know.
Crazy. So I mean, yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I think there are some like the little things they showed throughout the presentation that's really funny, like how at the beginning of the game it's totally silent. You cannot hear the soundtrack until your fairy companion Gallica casts a spell on the main character, and he can hear the game soundtrack in his head. So that's what you're hearing is the music in the main character's head. Which is
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
a
awesome.
really good touch. Yeah,
it's like Yakuza, the more recent ones, where it's like this is just what Ichiban sees in terms of the enemies, and then Kiryu's like, I guess I've been hanging around Ichiban too much. That's why he sees them like this too.
Yeah. So I did, and throughout the presentation, they just kind of went over like what the game flow is like. So going around like they're saying that the game is not open world. When you're going around like exploring like the royal capital, for example, it's just you're traveling in between zones that you can fast travel at any time in between them. And when you're traveling out in the world, it's not like you're in like an explorable world. You're kind of using this land vehicle to get like from like travel from like a city to a dungeon, for example, and like you can do like various activities like on the journey there. So like it kind of has like a almost a real time traveling component of like you can sleep, and like I assume like you can use sleeping as a way to like kind of just like if you just want to get there immediately. But but you can use that time in between like the city to the dungeon to like do stuff on the land vehicle, like whether
Just
it's like
like in
cooking
Dragon's
or
Dogma.
or washing or washing clothes or whatever. So and they're showing off like much of like we've already seen this before, like with the first Kuro game, and the way that like hey, if there's like lower level enemies that like you just want to get through, you can like kind of just like battle them in real time and get through them very quickly. But then if you come up against an opponent that like you can't like beat in like a few swings, like you'll actually just go transition to the turn-based battle system, and you'll already have inflicted like some amount of damage on them from the get-go. They'll show more of that and as in the lead up to its release. I think the one really cool thing about this game is the way they're doing their job system, and Adam and I have been like kind of musing about this when this was first showed off. It's like, oh, they have this game seems to have like a job or class system, like based on like some of the UI they've shown. So
yeah, I saw a lot of people actually like surprised that there's a job system. Like if you were observant, you would have known this already. Sorry.
It's okay. So they call it archetypes in this game, like how Remnant does it. Where as you're like it's almost like they're not necessarily personas. Like there is definitely like forms to like the classes that definitely look like personas, but the way they utilize them, it's not like the traditional Persona games because all your characters can equip the same archetype. Like if you want all brawlers, for example, you can all have equip brawler and like have that moveset, and like if like it's almost like a Bravely Default in a way. And the way you kind of get new odd job archetypes is like through the social link equivalent of this game. So for example, that pink gladiator that's all bruised up, when you establish like that bond with her, like that social link, that's your access to the brawler archetype. So and they're kind of teasing that this game will have a lot of archetypes. So I'm really interested to see like if this game will kind of lean more into like Bravely Default, more so than the traditional Persona in terms of like how the battle system is designed and formed. Which is to me that's like a really interesting like concept because that's part of like the reasons why the Bravely Default games are really good in that aspect. Is like hey, you can kind of mix and match your job classes to like to tailor to the specific strategies. So forth. So that's really cool. And other than that, if you want to see more footage of the game, I also put up like the full presentation there if you want to look through it. And it's looking, it's looking great. I'm very, very interested in learning more about this game and playing it later this year. I think it's one of those things that like I understand why people say, oh, this just looks like Persona 6, but to me it's just like there's kind of a bit more nuance to this game than what it's initially letting on. Like, sure, they're borrowing like what they've learned through developing the mainline SMT and Persona games throughout the years for elements of this game, but I think it's kind of reductive to call this just a Persona clone based on like how they're kind of uh what they're presenting on its face. So I don't know. I kind of feel weird about that when people say it just looks like Persona and that's it. Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, first of all, I do think October's. I mean, the back half of the year is going to fill up, especially once all the summer announcements filter through, especially once we learn what Nintendo's doing in the back half of the year. But as at this moment, it seems like October is a really good time for it, and I think naturally the discussion around it is going to be drawing a comparison to Persona, but then hopefully going that second step and saying Persona, but or actually not like Persona at all. Persona does it this way. Metaphor does it this way. So it'll be a natural jumping off point for drawing the picture, but as long as you don't indulge in that too much, um, see exactly like what Atlas has in store for keeping the two series running in parallel. A few other kind of smaller announcements from this week. Another one from publisher Bandai Namco, a game adaptation of the isekai anime That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. So Isekai Chronicles for all consoles, releasing on August 8th.
Yeah, this is based on that a pretty popular IP in Japan isekai series called That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. This is kind of a weird one because this game's like battle system is like taking place on like a 2D side-scrolling plane that happens in real time. You kind of have like chibi characters that have battle members, other party battle members out on the field with you. And also there's like a town or city building mechanic to it as well, and you build up facilities and upgrade them to gain or buff up your stats and your other party members' stats. So I'm unfamiliar. I've heard of this series. I've seen it here and there, but I've never watched it or read or anything.
I watched the whole anime. It's like a isekai power trip, but in a good way because it's just like a guy trying to build a whole army of nation. That's basically it. It's like sorry.
Does this game? Are you interested in this game at all, or you're just like,
I don't really trust anime IP as video games, but when you watch the anime, it's like this would make a very good town building game, and here we be. Oh, there's a town building video game right here. So
okay.
that's kind of like my take with it, because like the first thing he did, like the main character, as soon as he gets out of this cave after absorbing all kinds of shit, he starts like building like a kingdom of monsters, and because he was a human before, he's like let's make a friendly relationship with these other kingdoms, so it's just like that kind of thing. It's all about the world building right there. It's less about the main plot, right?
Yeah. That's what I hear too. It's like when people are like the people seem to be really drawn to the world building of this series. That's what the impression I get.
So my girlfriend watches a handful of isekai animes, and there's a handful of them that involve slimes in some fashion. Like I'm not gonna be able to name any of these, but there's one where like the guy is a chef, and one of his companions is a slime. There's one where the girl becomes like a tamer and tames like a rare slime, and like they're like what why are there slimes? Like why are these so prevalent in the isekai animes? But
I think people are just like out of ideas. So when they see like a big anime trend, they start copying it. Because like I was watching animes with my friend, and I'm watching like 80s anime. There's like not even like 2 isekai animes. It's all like mech shows, and now it's like 99% of the roster is isekai. I get kicked out of the heroes party and so I just want to live a slow life, or I am in a video game. It's like the free anime tropes that you will see as like anime.
I'm okay with that. It's just that when people like the slime isekai, I'm like, wait, which one? And I guess this is the main one here is the one being adapted. But yeah. Let's see. We also got a Japanese focus announcement, a spin-off to the Compile Hearts Death End Request series. So Death End Request Code Z will be releasing on consoles in Japan on September 19th.
Yeah, there's like
an opinion on the series.
So one of my friends is like a really big fan of Death End Request, and I think it's a common opinion of the Death and Request series is like people like it. The strength of it is that it's visual novel storytelling. Like a lot of people like the story and the narrative. A lot of people wish that like they kind of got rid of the gameplay because they really like the story and don't and feel like the gameplay gets in the way of it.
That's my opinion when I reviewed it. I wish it's like it's like I dread when the gameplay segment comes up, but the story part's like I'm all in for this.
Yeah,
That reminds me when Adam played that Crystar spiritual successor, Primachina. Like, actually
yeah.
some interesting story, but the gameplay is very bland.
So, um, so this Code Z game, it was part of the lineup of when Compileheart listed out their ongoing projects several months ago. This was under the name Code Xeon for that, and this is like meant to be as a spin-off before they release the next proper mainline Death and Request 3 game. So we know that's also in the making of this. What's interesting about this is like the as a spin-off, they're like moving away from the standard. The Death and Request games were like a turn-based game, but like it was much like bowling almost, where you kind
Pinball.
of or pinball, where you hit enemies towards other enemies, and they would like kind of ricochet around the arena to like deal more damage. Um,
I'm just gonna say straight up, like reading up on what they're changing with this. I think this is probably a better fit for what they're going for.
Yeah, that's what my friend was saying too. Who's really into Death Ring? He's like, oh, this is really cool. This is more like a mystery dungeon game with its gameplay, which is maybe a better fit because there's like part of the game is also like it's very violent with what how the story unfolds. So there's a lot of like bloodiness and some parts of gore in it as well. So the kind of details it that this game is going to be. But part of the reason why it's called Code Z is like this game was
Zero Z
made.
rated.
Yeah. This game was made with a 0Z rating in mind. Like there's like the rating that they wanted to get in the making of this game.
If I understand correctly, that means that you can't actually normally buy this like in a store. You have to buy it online or something.
I think it's either like buying it digitally, or there are like I think some shops in Japan that like are like licensed or like or gain some special permission.
Because I know there was
something.
I know there was something specific about that, so that's interesting.
Yeah, like I remember there was when people were trying to import Tsukihime on PS4, they couldn't with their international credit card. You had to have like a Japanese credit card because it was like a 0Z game, I believe, and there was like a special stipulation with that. So, and
even on Amazon Japan, I feel like Amazon Japan, if you were doing it like international, they'd be able to tell.
Yeah, I don't know if that also applies to Amazon as well. Maybe that was a way that people bypassed that. But even Kite mentions it on the article. Like physical purchases will require stores to confirm the buyer's ID because it's a 0Z title, while digital platforms like the PlayStation Store will require direct purchases from credit cards. It has to be like a domestic credit card.
Okay, so I just looked up Tsukihime remake on Amazon Japan. It just says, "Are you 18 or older? You need to be 18 or older to buy this game." Yes, no. You click yes, it lets you onto the page. So I'm guessing Amazon, they don't care. They don't care.
I mean, they can't be held liable. They did their due diligence of like giving you, it's up to the consumer to respond reliably and truthfully and honestly. Like when we were all much younger on the internet, and there's a page like, "Are you 18?" They're like,
Yes.
"Oh, yeah, of course, yes." Why would you doubt that I'm not 18?
Like, hello, kid buying Doom
Halo free. Are you 17 yet?
He's like, yes, I'm 17. I'm like, I believe you.
It's kind of wild on that same vein, the stuff with Pixiv recently, where it's like they've just blocked like 18 plus content outside of in the US and UK because of local laws.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
It's because like some states are literally, you need to verify that you're over 18. It's like, well, Pixiv doesn't want to deal with that. They're just gonna say if you're in the US or UK, you can't see this shit.
Yeah, it's crazy like how much like laws like that ripple throughout that like totally unrelated like spaces.
Yeah,
it's a shame.
This next one I should have talked about when we were talking about Metaphor, and that is that the Shin Megami Tensei character designer Kazuma Kaneko is leaving ATLUS after being with the company for 35 years to join another company that I'm not going to pronounce right. Colopol?
Yeah, Colopol.
Colopl.
Mm-hmm.
So my understanding is that Kaneko has not designed original characters for ATLUS since Digital Devil Saga 2.
It's been a long
SaGa.
while. I don't know if Digital Devil Saga 2 was the last one, but it's been a while for like character designs for sure. Like he hasn't worked on a modern Atlas game for a long time.
Who's the one that does like Shin Megami Tensei 4 and 5?
That's
Masahiko?
Masayuki Doi.
Oh, okay. Doi.
Yeah, so he's kind of like the successor to Kaneko on what he used to like. Even Doi does like demon designs now, not to say that like Atlas still uses a lot of Kaneko's like original demon designs, even in the upcoming SMT5
Yeah.
Vengeance. And there are some like ones designed by Doi here and there, but it's still mostly like classic traditional Kaneko. Like even the design like Mara, for example, that everyone remembers, that's from Kaneko. And it's kind of I kind of have mixed feelings on this, to be honest. Like Kaneko is to me is like one of the most important artists that I look up to like throughout my life, because like I am a big fan of his very early works, like from like the first Shin Megami Tensei up until like SMT3. Of course, a lot of his classic designs in like the other spin-off series like Digital Devil Saga, like original Personas, and so forth, because he has that very gothic like touch and feel to his character designs that like like some people like are definitely turned off by them, which is totally fine. But for me, like I have a lot of his like the Kazuma Kaneko like art books that like are just like big like huge art books that are just like filled with like demon designs drawn by him, that for the most part. And he for me, he kind of opened up my worldview of like what art is, or what art could be, rather. Just like like a lot of like what I think about like in games, like from an art angle, like like in some way, shape, or form, I always think about like his style. Not to say that like I don't think about like other artists, but like for him, he's like one of the most defining ones for me. So when like him in recent years has been kind of in a bit of a bummer, because I know he's been working on like some projects that are like NFT related as well, and like I won't really get into like whether that's for me or not. It definitely is not. But it's in kind of we've all seen this coming of like, hey, Kaneko has really contributed significantly to ATLUS outside of like being like a supervisor for like the demon designs, uh, and so forth. But him moving on and hopefully getting him more involved into like another company's like product output, hopefully puts him like in a more better position, I guess. And hopefully wish him the best. I know Colopol is the only game that I know them for really is Shiro Neko Project over Japan. It's a mobile gacha game.
I was gonna ask, like, what is
Yeah.
Colopol known for?
Yeah.
That's the original Dragalia loss.
Weren't they the ones that were sued by Nintendo, or
Yeah. So the Nintendo Colopol did have like that legal battle over like Dragalia Lost, like over the control input method surrounding Dragalia Lost, because like Nintendo feels like Shiro Neko Project somehow copied Dragalia Lost, or Nintendo like patented that certain aspect of Dragalia Lost like input movement system, and that ultimately led it so like Colopol had to like change something about Shiro Neko Project in the way that like players inputted them like the controls of their character in that game. Which is like I forgot like most of the details surrounding it because it was like many years ago, but it was a crazy legal battle between them.
Apparently, it burned a lot of goodwill in Japan for the company or something. Like for Nintendo side. For Nintendo side, they'll be like,
Nintendo side?
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, we're not supporting Dragalia Lost. It's like this thing came first, or something like that.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that. Yeah. So
it's like a lot of crazy drama with it.
Yeah. So I mean, it's it kind of sucks to see Kaneko leave, but at the same time, I totally get it because it's been so long since he's really contributed to ATLUS forever. And like Doi has been getting better. I think a lot of like Doi's earlier works, especially when he started like entering the scene with like SMT4, has been it was kind of a mixed bag. But I think Doi's been getting better and like will eventually become like a really really great successor in that regard. I don't really have like any strong complaints. Like the last time I had really mixed feelings about like an SMT game's like designs is like when they hired like the Kamen Rider like monster artist or something for some of the demons in SMT4 that looked really really out of place in it. And I was like, I don't know if this really fits the feel of the game. Like, but it did have like some unique designs in that aspect. But for the most part, like Toy's been doing a pretty like great job with like some of the new demons designs, especially like Dagda, for example. Like really, really great design.
And the last major headline we have here, which is kind of like a business focused headline, involves our good friends, the Embracer Group. So the Embracer Group is undergoing a organizational realignment and a name change. They are going to be separating into 3 distinct companies with the following names: Asmodee Group, Coffee Stain and Friends, Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends. So, interestingly enough, the way that the press release from Embracer talks about a little bit about how these are going to be like designated and delegated. Like Asmodee Group will be mostly their tabletop games publisher. Uh, Coffee Stain and Friends will have the indie studio Coffee Stain, which was one of Embracer's like first acquisitions back when they were THQ. And then Middle Earth Enterprises. This is interesting. They're going to be the stewards of the Lord of the Rings, as well as the Tomb Raider IP. Which is like, oh, I guess Tomb Raider is the and Friends in Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends.
Yeah, it's funny that I keep forgetting that technically, like Embracer just owned Lord of the Rings, the IP. It's like I forgot about that.
So yeah, the and Friends part. Go for it.
Is this a situation where they're actually splitting apart, or is it like an alphabet type deal where they're just rearranging stuff?
From what I understand, they're actually like splitting apart. That's from what I read, because that's the kind of only viable way to kind of.
The way I understood it is Embracer had a lot of debt, and this is important for like their finances and for banking and for loans and credit and things like that. And I'm not an economist, but I guess this someone smarter than me basically described it as this split up. Most of that debt is being saddled with Asmodee, the tabletop group, but I guess that's seen as advantageous because tabletop games have much lower costs and higher margins. So like it's possible for them to basically work towards that debt more regularly or more reliably than like video game development can. Something
that's
like
an
that.
Interesting,
So like
yeah,
there's strategy there. So
yeah. So like Asmodee has like spent like the next several years like kind of just like inching out of like that debt hellhole that they put themselves in. Interesting. But it's like in a more reliable path there. Or more predictable rather. So yeah, the for the Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends part, like the and Friends part includes Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, Tripwire, Warhorse. So this means like stuff like Dead Island, Killing Floor. Just we talked about it last, like Kingdom Come Deliverance. So I imagine when Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 comes out, might get like I don't know if we're gonna have a logo change or like show anything that says Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends in it when you start it up. Interesting to think about. This also includes like Metro and Tomb Raider, like you mentioned. They also mentioned that this Middle Earth Enterprises and Friends also includes things like PlayOn, Dark Horse. They also have a thing for free mode, and I think that's for limited time games or something like that.
Limited run games, yeah, because they do own the limited run games, and I gotta imagine thinking about it like realistically, limited run games has probably been one of Embracer's most profitable like purchases because they've like constantly been releasing stuff, whereas like a lot of the companies that actually ended up releasing stuff didn't always do amazing. So
yeah,
weird to think about.
The other third pillar of this split is Coffee State and Friends, and that the and Friends includes Ghost Ship, THQ Nordic. So you have and then, like the IPs that they mentioned was like Satisfactory, Wreckfest, Teardown, Deep Rock Galactic, Valheim, and there's all sorts of other ones there, and also like a lot of like online games like Star Trek Online and the Neverwinter as well. So it's a pretty substantial like shake up in this whole Embracer saga, and hopefully moving forward, this is going to be a more sustainable model instead of like the fucking burning ship that was Embracer. So,
yeah. Now, will anyone learn from their mistakes of literally betting everything on a, what was it, $2 billion Saudi investment that fell through? It was like just
putting all their eggs in the $2 billion venture capitalist basket backed by Saudis or whatever it was. Like,
yeah,
what's sort of funny about what's kind of amusing about that is that was originally reported by Steven Totillo and Axios. It was never confirmed that that's what it was, but oftentimes when something is reported by a reputable source, people will just accept it as fact, because he's got a good pedigree. But then when Saber Interactive left, because the CEO of Saber Interactive basically bought themselves from Embracer a couple months ago, right? And they did an interview with GameIndustry.gi or biz or whatever it is, gi.biz, and he basically said in the interview that it was Saudi money. Like, he just confirmed it. Like, oh, okay, thanks for the confirmation of that.
Yeah. What's the biggest RPG IP that this would affect? I mean, we talked about Warhorse with
Remnant.
Remnant, right?
Gearbox Publishing.
Yeah.
Gunfire Games, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which, hey, you know what? I played that DLC 2 of Remnant earlier this week with friends. It's fun. Good.
With friends.
Man, if I knew you were gonna play it like immediately, I would have just requested code for you anyways.
I didn't know we were gonna play it this week.
Yeah,
it was like,
not blaming you. Just it's very funny because I could have requested code.
I just happened to be that sweet spot. It's like, okay, I got done with Eiyuden guides for the most part. I have some free time. I don't know if we're gonna get Sans landed on time. We didn't, obviously. So I was like, okay, I'm still waiting for Megaton Musashi. I don't know. And then they're like, hey, you want to play some Remnant? Like, went through it.
RPG site and friends.
Yep.
There's a few other smaller updates before we go into the date rundown at the end of the podcast here. Adam, you might need to edit this out. Can you talk about what you saw with Paper Mario preview or no?
Yeah. There wasn't a lot to talk about.
Basically, yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at here. So there's a new overview trailer about the upcoming remakester for Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. And I know you had a little bit of a preview event where Nintendo talked about just at a high level what the update was. You had mentioned that the preview was really framed as, for someone who has no preconception for what the Thousand Year Door is, so you couldn't really gather a lot from it. Was there any like one or two nuggets that you can kind of relay to us about what that preview opportunity was like and what you?
Okay, I'll say this: review code for this game is out. I do have it. I have not started it, but like this game comes out in a month, and the code's been available for a while. It's been, I guess, really early access to it.
Which is
Cullen's
nice,
been playing
Bandai
it.
Namco.
Yeah. I played this game. I like it a lot. I pretty much could write a review for it now. I feel like, it's unless the remaster is like way worse than I remember, or somehow is like terrible updates or changes or something. I don't know. But anyways, so before we got the review code, we did like a stream event. Like basically they just streamed the game to us, but it was definitely framed in the way of like, we know a lot of you have played this, but some of you haven't. So we're going to just pretend that none of you have, and kind of just introduce the game from state one, from
which is fair, like in a sense, because the game is when did the original come out?
2004.
20 years ago. But so plenty of people were not around or were very, very, very young when the game first came out.
Right. So. Anyways, so they kind of gave us an overview of the game. They showed us like, here's Goombella, here is The first boss, the first major boss, which is the pink dragon, whose name I forget, and so on and so forth. But here are the things that I noted as updates, like that weren't in the original. The visuals are upgraded in a few places, and it's not just like an upscale. The most obvious place from what I saw was the Bogly Woods, and there's previews and videos of this now, so you can probably find it. Just in terms of like the color and the palettes being used, it's not just taking the GameCube game and upscaling it. They actually did make new art assets and new, at least new palettes for some of that stuff. I've not played it. I thought the Bogly Woods looked great. I don't know if there's going to be any part in the game where it looks worse. I don't know.
Looking at the like comparisons people have made, and also seeing what like changes they've made to kind of alleviate stuff like backtracking, which was the major like complaint with the original. I think there's I've seen, I wouldn't have any qualms just calling this a remake. Visuals are basically completely redone. There's a lot of changes to gameplay systems, like not like fundamental, like major changes, but like enough to make it fundamentally a slightly different experience from the original. Like even just down to the backtracking stuff, even down to the quality of life and like battle stuff. It's like,
do you have anything specific about the backtracking? Because I don't know. I haven't played it.
So one of the problems people had, well, it was like death by 1,000 cuts, but one of the things they've changed is that instead of there being multiple pipe rooms for you to like move around the world, now there's just one, and there's like more pipes than there were originally. So just inherently, that seems like that alone should solve most of the issues people had, especially if you want to try and do like a completionist playthrough. It won't be as much of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, so I definitely remember that in the Rogueport sewers in the original game. There are several different pipe rooms that kind of transfer you around the world, but you kind of have to learn how to like navigate around them. So if they kind of condense that, that could definitely help. Yeah. The other things I noted from the stream preview, there's new music, like updated music, but you can toggle to the original music if you want. I think it involves like an involved item.
It's really neat how like apparently there's like remixes of the main battle theme for like each of the main areas, and that's really cool. That's really cool. So
let's see. There's a new NPC called Battle Master that gives you tutorials about like here's how you do your different attacks. What's sort of funny about this Battle Master is he's like a purple colored toad, like toadstool, and he has little like Goomba cutouts. Like rather than having a Goomba, he has like a little like cardboard wooden cutout of a Goomba. And he's like, all right, now the Goomba is going to jump at you. And so what he does is he picks up the cutout, and I forget exactly what he does, but he like kind of pantomimes the Goomba jumping.
That's adorable.
It's really cute. Yeah, because obviously the cutout itself can't jump, so he has to sort of like hide behind it and pretend it's jumping. Anyways, there's some of the side quests in the game in Paper Mario 2. It's at a place called the Trouble Center, and now there's an extra NPC there that gives you hints. Because some of those quests, it's been a while, but I do remember they were a little bit vague in terms of like, find this in this large section of the world. Like, well, I don't know exactly where to go or who to talk to. I have a very vague idea. And so there's now an NPC there that probably clues you in a little bit tighter in terms of what you're actually supposed to do for the side quest. So that's new. Now there's also Goombella, when Goombella is around. In the original game, Goombella would, if you clicked a certain button, she would just give you some information about like the location you're in, which is sort of nice little flavor text. But now there's also an option where she'll tell you what your main objective is. So again, not that this game is like tricky to figure out where you're supposed to go, but there's an extra thing there to help you if you're like lost. Let's see. There's now an easier
picking it up time, like you just picked it up after like 5 months or something.
Oh yeah, you picked it up after 5 months. Like, where was I? What was I doing? You can now switch your partners more quickly outside of battle, which makes sense. Like before, you had to go into a menu and switch it. Now you can just toggle it very quickly. There's now a collectible art and sound gallery, which is always nice. I asked during the stream event if there was a dialogue skip, because if you played the original Thousand Year Door, especially if you've gotten to the final boss, there's a long, unskippable dialogue sequence before that, and that final boss is not a pushover. It's pretty easy to actually fail and have to try again, especially if you're not prepared. But you have to watch this long cutscene again. And I asked him, can dialogue be skipped or fast-forwarded at all? And they kind of gave me a vague answer. They said some, but not all. Like, okay, I guess that's better than nothing. I would not normally skip dialogue, but on a replay or in that sort of situation or whatever, it's nice to have. And lastly, this is one of those things that I'm not the best person to talk about this, but it looks like they have adjusted Vivian's character a little bit to be more representative of what she originally was supposed to be. In that Vivian is a ghost, and the way I understand it is that in the Japanese dialogue, it's very heavily implied that she's a transgender woman. I know there's interpretations of that, but in the English localization, whatever that was, they just completely washed that out. It's not present at all. But it seems like they brought that back. To some extent.
It's funny. It's very, very funny because from the outside looking in, you just see a bunch of Paper Mario fans looking transphobic when it's like, no. They're happy the transphobia is there because it confirms that the representation is there this time.
Yeah, so Vivian is a part of so Vivian is a part of a trio of sisters. And in the original English release, they were just sisters. But one of the sisters, like the main one, the oldest one, her name is like Beldam. And she's kind of like a crotch. Like that's just kind of her character. So she's not like an evil person, not necessarily, but she's not pure-hearted goodness. And there's this part where there's this part in the and I saw from preview where she refuses to refer to Vivian as her sister, which is like transphobic, but it also sort of implies that character element is there, that she is a transgender person. So I've seen people like tweet about this as like, we're so back, ? Because it's like, yeah, transphobia. But out of context is very funny, as James was saying. But yeah, I will play this for myself eventually, and I'll kind of see how they take that, how they handle that.
It's a really good game. It's a really tight game. It's got a lot of optional content. It's got a real fun cast of characters, a lot of cool environments. It's great. I'm not going to replay it, but it's great for anyone who has it. We also got more details from the most recent streaming event for updates to Granblue Fantasy Relink version 1.2. We talked a little bit last week about the 2 new characters that they're adding, which have the names Seofon and
What are their names?
I don't remember the other ones.
Seofon song, okay? Remember that, guys?
Seofon song, yep. But also, Megaton bombs dropping. The game will have a map. They're adding
not this version. Next.
Oh, they're not?
No,
not 3.
Yeah.
Okay, maps are coming. I rephrase it. Maps are on their way.
We did get a Megaton feature in version 1.2, though.
What's that?
You can transmute up to 30 sigils at once now instead of 1 by 1.
Unbelievable.
That's the huge update with this version 1.2.
I don't know.
By the way, Josh, I appreciate the thumbnail pic you used for this.
Okay, now I gotta see. 1 second.
But so also they also laid out, and people have already
10
seen
out of 10, no notes.
For people who already played this update, they've already seen this. But to acquire the Seofon and Tweyen or Siete and Song, you can't recruit them the standard way of getting like this crewmate cards like in the base game. They require like a special crewmate cards, and you have to like acquire these by trading in 3 Supreme World Essences. That's a new item, and to get these 3 Supreme World Essences, you have to convert them from a map that drops in like the 2 new quests. You're getting medallions from these 2 new quests, gather them, and then turn them in for these world essences, which then you need to acquire 3 of to get this special crewmate card for them. And people are like, it's just like Unite and Fight, which is like the Guild War, the infamous Guild War mechanic.
It's the same boss too, and people are like, we killed this trash mob in a split second in the mobile game, and here they're fighting for their lives. It's what is it? It's like you get your Guild War experience again. You had to kill this guy like thousands of times, just like the mobile game.
Oh, okay. So at least people have said that like it doesn't take that as like super long to get these characters in Relink compared to the mobile game. Because in the mobile game, it takes like an eternity and a half to get them. And like in this one, like people are like, oh, we got like our first character like in an hour of doing this.
Or you can pay $5.
Or you can pay if you want. But who wants to do that? And apparently, the Fate episodes of these two new characters continue the main story. So it's not like playable stages, but you'll get to see like more story vignettes to like continue the main story through their Fate episodes.
I think they said the next patch is supposed to have like a finale to the story or something. It'll be like people are like, okay, so does that mean the story is not done? The main story? Are you telling me that Lilith is not dead?
I don't know what they're planning for if they're gonna continue the story in version 1.3 or if it's just like Sandalphon's Fate episode or something. Does it? Who knows? But
like my thing is with this is like, is the game still being supported after 1.3? It sounds like support's going to be lacking because the player base dropped off.
That's not what I've like read into it. It sounds like any further support is probably going to be DLC or like an expansion or something.
And that's totally fine for a game to end, you know? It's okay for a game.
They weren't really marketing this as like a service game.
Yeah.
It's just a game
From the get-go, from the get-go, they said, we don't want this to be a live service. There might be DLC or expansion. If it's successful, what do you know? It's been successful. It might get DLC or expansion.
Yeah. So it's like
not,
I remember
it's like when Monster Hunter World came out and people expected it to be a live service, and that game got a lot of support, especially in Iceborne. But a lot of people were also like disappointed when they were very clear from the get-go. It's like, oh yeah, this isn't meant to be a live service, and you kind of see it with like Monster Hunter Rise, where it's like Sunbreak. That was just straight up a live service for like a year with all the updates they released for it.
Yeah, I remember when Outriders came out. Like the main complaint with people was like, "Man, there's nothing else to do after you're done with the end game." You know, people were like wanted like live service updates of that. It's like they never said this was a live service game, and they wanted, they eventually got an expansion, but there wasn't much of a player base left. Still, like they only got that expansion because people wanted more of the game to play.
Also, I wonder if it was just that, or if it was also because of them getting screwed over by Square Enix with the Game Pass thing.
Yeah, but a lot of the complaints for that was like they never meant for it to be a live service game. Anyway, so the version 1.2 content is already out, like with the two new characters and the some of the quality of life things like the transmute up to 30 sigils at once. So the next thing they shared with us is the version 1.3, like some of the updates you'll find in there. Obviously, they've said this before, but Sandalphon will be a playable character now in version 1.3. Yeah, they specifically said that you will not recruit him the same way you recruit these characters, so he'll have a different method to recruit him. Some of the quality of life updates that they're gonna introduce is like when you're playing Narmaya in the game, for example, a lot of her skills depend on like how many butterflies are out at once to like enhance them. So seeing how many butterflies out at once when there's a lot of things happening on the screen could be, it was kind of a challenge to see how many butterflies were there. They're changing that up so there's like a numerical counter by Narmaya, so people know exactly how many butterflies she has out. So that's one of like the specific examples. They're also finally adding, like Brian mentioned earlier, they're adding an overlay map to the game. So when you're going through stages,
sorry for preempting it. I got too excited.
I know. Chow is very excited as well that they're adding.
I could finally finish my guide because the lack of a map, I gave up trying to count all the treasure chests in the desert. It's somewhere in there.
So so there's two things about this overlay map that they mentioned.
Please tell me they marked the crabs you've already picked up. That's the other reason why I didn't even bother.
Once it'll be marked on the map.
Yeah. So on your initial run through a stage, it will not mark the V pincers. But if you complete the stage, then they'll show you the location of all the missing V pincers that you missed.
The director said was like, we made this navigation super easy. We didn't expect the player wanted a map. what you said.
They're like, come on, man. It's like a straight shot, which is really funny.
Don't
They
put
also
collectibles in your game, then, asshole.
and also a really funny thing about this update is like there's a way to collect Wii pincers forever now with version 1.3. After you're done collecting all the Wii pincers, crabs in the base game, they'll just randomly show up around Folka, and you can just continue collecting them forever if you want.
Or you could talk to Little Prince and he'll release it and you can pick it up again if you want to see all the different characters picking it up or something.
Oh my god. If you really want, I guess. If you really like collecting crabs with different characters.
Collect crabs for 100 hours.
Yep. Another thing that people wanted in this game that they're adding is a photo mode. So, people who wanted to get like nice screenshots with their favorite characters, they're finally adding that as a feature in the game too. There's also another thing called sigil synthesis that they have listed, but they didn't really specify how it's going to work in the game. But the description for this is they're going to allow players to combine sigils to customize traits, which is kind of interesting.
I think what they're trying to go for is trying to get rid of like the RNG in case if people just keep having bad luck and get not the sigils to progress, they could just farm a bunch of other crappier ones and then you can synthesize like the really OP sigils or something like that. I think that's what they were going for.
Yeah. So that seems to be the what they've shared with us. They also mentioned in the live stream that they originally weren't supposed to have a real part 3 relink stream. Like they only did this because the game was very successful and they wanted to continue communicating to the fan base directly, and they've shown that they support, so they did that part 3 live stream, or part 3 event program rather. So that's cool. They also part of version 1.2, which is already out. They put out a patch notes page where they buffed a lot of the characters.
Yeah,
So,
they said they have no intention of nerfing characters from now on because they said that after nerfing characters, they got a lot of backlash. So they're like, yeah, we're it's mostly gonna be buffs from now on.
they already did the damage is already done. Fairy is forever.
That's just an exploit, okay?
No, Fairy. Once they fixed Fairy, everything changed. Nothing was ever the same.
I think that people were more mad about Percival because his entire kit revolves around like canceling his skills so he could do like a cooler combo chain, and then now they fix it. Now he's just so boring to play, and now he does way less damage, and they're like, It's like, oh, that's a bug fix. It's like that was not our intention.
The one thing that's fucked up is like nearly everyone in the cast got like buffs, but they didn't touch Gandagoza at all. Like,
it's like that's how you know that he's good. Okay, he's so good that you don't touch him.
Oh, you're right, man. That's so sad,
The
dude.
secret top tier.
Yeah. Goddamn. So yeah, there you go. They also one of the important changes that I didn't mention is that they finally improved the visibility of like damage numbers when you're hitting the damage cap. So one of the big things in the game is like, hey, you want to increase your damage cap to do more damage, but seeing if like your damage, like finding out if you were doing damage cap or not was kind of tricky. And like once people mentioned many weeks later how you could see it, like you can finally like distinguish it, but it still wasn't a great indicator. They finally made it so it's much more simple to see if you're doing damage cap within those.
It has like a yellow outline. Was it like a big splash or something?
Originally, it was like you had to look at like
strike.
it was like a strike when you did your like behind the damage numbers that you were doing. And
Wouldn't there also be a very, very slight like yellow glow to the number 2?
Kinda like it was very slight. Like it was hard to notice it if you weren't like looking for it, and people didn't even know like that was a thing until like I said, many weeks after the initial release. And the number one topic about the game, like about a week into the game's life, was like, how the fuck can I tell if I'm hitting damage cap?
I think they were just trying to hide it. In the mobile game, it took like people like 7 years to figure out how the damage formula works because they wouldn't tell us.
So they finally fucking made it, much more evident now. Kind of took way longer than it should have, but here we are. So there you go. And then the version 1.3 will be coming sometime next month in May.
We got a new trailer for the upcoming Versus 13 game, Reynatis, the
Versus
Nat- Natsume Atari and Shuryu game. And now Nice America is going to be publishing this in the West, I believe, and they said they were
Yes.
going to give us a subtitled or localized version of this trailer, but I don't think we have that yet.
Yeah,
Is that true?
that is true. They quote retweeted the original Japanese tweet and say, "Check out this new trailer. We're gonna release one on our own very soon. Thumbs up."
Magic wand. No, it's a magic
Magic
wand
wand.
emoji.
That's right.
I think I watched the trailer of it. It's like imagine Versus 13 with no budget. It's like it was so choppy and stuff, and it's like this
Yeah,
red lines.
I try not to like judge too much based on animation quality, but like this one, like whenever characters talk, it's very like PS2 fish lipped. With no, and I'm not saying mocap is obviously very pricey and that's like prestige stuff, but it's not even close. Like it looks very budget, and I feel bad like even bringing that up because it feels kind of shallow, but it is my first impression when I watch this trailer. Maybe that's because obviously I don't speak the language, there are no subtitles. So what else I have to pay attention to? That's what I see. But yeah,
It's,
hopefully we'll get an updated version.
I want to hope that this game will be like. I want to believe that like pushing past this game's visuals, maybe there's like a really slick, fun game to play.
I don't know.
beneath it all.
I feel like it's an unsung story here. That Kickstarter game. It's like we have.
Well, I mean, this one's already a leg up. This one's coming out.
I know, but I'm just saying. It's like yeah, we got Matsuno here, so you gotta back this game. Then it's like it's kind of like almost the same pitch. It's like we got Yoko Shinomura in here, and we got the Final Fantasy VII writer. It's like you
Okay,
gotta play this.
that reminds me. I just had to give a shout out to the commentator of like the one of our Reynatis stories. Say I like he said like once he saw that Nojima was on scenario, he's like, nah, I'm done. Nope, I'm not playing it. So that's pretty funny that like that there is like some people out there like if they see Nojima doing this scenario, they're like, that tells me I should not play this game.
I can't tell if Nojima is a fucking genius or a hack. I cannot tell.
You know what? It's the man is a mystery. You know, he is cooking or he is being cooked.
I mean, like that whole plot line where Tidus walks up to a Blitzball and it blows up and kills him, and then he told everyone that was just a fan fiction story that someone submitted to him or something. What? It's like, huh? I don't know if this is like a Galaxy Brain move or something.
Maybe Nojima is a genius, but it's like it's a misunderstood genius, you know. But yeah, I also mentioned that I initially wrote up a story where Nisa has also been providing official translations to interview with the developers conducted by Famitsu. They released the second half of that out, and I included that in the news story for the second trailer. A lot of it was, interviewing Shimomura about like her approach in composing the soundtrack for the game, and she had like some very insightful things to say about it.
Remember back in like October of last year, we had two Souls-like release pretty close to each other. We had Lies of P and we had Lords of the Fallen, not to be confused with Lords of the Fallen. And then the team at CI Games released kind of a roadmap for all their free content plans, which was like this tile-based roadmap that didn't really have a lot of specifics to it about new quest lines, inventory, quality of life stuff, gamepad rebinding. I remember we kind of lingered on that for a little bit. Well, basically, for those that haven't been following, including myself, Lords of the Fallen, what they're calling version 1.5 or Master of Fate, is now available, which is basically the conclusion of their post-launch free update roadmap. So for those that like, for me, when I read this update about this new version of the game, like it's like, okay, if I was going to, for those that didn't have time to play this when it came out, it seems like all the QL has been implemented, new armor and weapon sets, quest lines. They split balance between PvP and PvE. It just seems like a good time to jump into the game for those that weren't able to get to it late last year. So version 1.5 for Lords of the Fallen, Master of Fate.
Yeah, props to CI Games, man. They really killed it with like getting their updates out on time and like meeting all those milestones like within just like only a few months after the game came out. Like that was a shitload they promised on the roadmap, and they pretty much delivered on that.
And they're all free updates too. So
yeah, And it's really cool what they're doing. Like I saw the video for this Master of Fate update, and it's like basically a new game plus, but they're adding in a way to do like an in-game randomizer as your new game plus. You can randomize like enemies spawning, the loot that you're getting, and kind of setting like difficulty modifiers of like you want more enemy density, and all sorts of stuff like for players who really crave that challenge in this game. So it's been really cool seeing them like really like having faith in what they put out and continuing to support it, and and living up to like that expectation. Like, hey man, thanks for supporting us and helping us like sell over 1 million copies with our debut game. We're really gonna put our best foot forward for the community, and make sure that like we deliver on the game that like both us and our community wanted, like from the get go. So that's cool. That's really cool that they're doing this all for free and like offering all of this stuff. So it makes me like whenever there's like free time, uh, whenever that is mythical
Yeah.
free time,
free
That's exactly
time
where I'm at.
outside of playing RPGs in 2024. Why do you think I'm playing Kuro 2 now? It's literally the only chance I can.
But it does put like good word of mouth for the developer.
Yeah.
CI Games. Like it kind of puts whatever they're working on like in the future like on my radar initially, even if I never get around to Lords of the
Yeah.
Fallen. The
And
fact that they were able to support the release and implement so many good features and updates and listen to their player base.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, my one main complaint with the game, which was kind of similar to Junior's thoughts on it, were that like the level design and the bosses were all generally really good. The game looks really good. It plays really well. The main problem is that some of the later game areas, it felt like the enemy density was kind of designed around multiplayer, and it just wasn't a great experience if you're doing it solo. And it sounds like they fixed that. So it's like, I have no qualms recommending it if they've reduced the enemy density. That is literally all they needed to do.
Yeah, that's what they mentioned. Like part of their roadmap is like fixing the multiplayer experience and lowering enemy density like as a default. Which
it's fine to put the enemies back in multiplayer. Just single player, just bring it in.
It's a bit too many. But like every time you boot up this game, like when I boot up my PS5, it's like constantly getting updates every time. It's like, what is being updated? Oh, Lord of the Fallens. So I don't know what the current state of the game is now. It's like if I boot it up, but
you'll probably get more update, like a big ass update to download and to finally like get all those patches that you missed.
Like imagine if you're like reviewing the game now versus like day one. It must be like a huge shock.
I imagine it's like transformative.
And then we also did, speaking of, we talked about this game a little bit in a few passing contexts. Falcom has released their big release this year, of course, is Kai no Kiseki, which is not Kuro 3, but it stars the same cast. So I'm thinking of it kind of like a Reverie as a Cold Steel follow-up. And they revealed new artwork and details about 3 of the main characters, which are Van, Agnes, and older dude.
It's too early to say for sure, but it sounds more like a Zero to Azure type deal, especially considering that Kuro 2, like by their own admission, wasn't originally meant to exist.
It's a filler game. That's what most people says. But I don't know. I haven't played it.
People saying it's a filler game, it's not just like literally you had Kondo saying, yeah, we put out Kuro 2 because East 10 wasn't ready. Literally a filler game. Literally.
Man, I will talk about that game when more people. I don't know. I don't understand the two.
You know what? In 2 weeks we can have not on the podcast because obviously it's gonna be a while before it gets announced. But
I know it's just man. I'm hoping this game is a big course correction once again from Kuro 2. Kuro 1, amazing. I really like Kuro 1. Kuro 2, oof, I have opinions about that game. It's fine. I'm optimistic for this game after seeing the first info. It's really interesting. So Van and Agnes obviously are back. They're the main protagonists of this Calvard arc. It's really interesting that the first side character they're reintroducing in this one is Burgard, because Burgard is from the first Kuro game, but he showed up late and but he didn't have like too big of an impact of the story.
Yeah, and he just wasn't in Kuro 2 whatsoever, which considering the ending of Kuro 1, that should have been the alarm bells that Kuro 2 was a filler, because it's like you can't really move Van's story forward too much without him. So
Yeah, so it's really cool to see that, that means Burgard will definitely have like a bigger impact on like the core premise of the story if he's being the first one shown from the side characters, which is really promising. They showed a little bit of Judith in the screenshots, so we see a little bit of Judith's new outfit. She's looking great. They also showed off some new gameplay footage in the Dengeki YouTube channel, which they teased Quatre's new outfit in it. It looks good. They showed a little bit of Rosette's new outfit. She looks great.
I love how one of the few things they've shown of this game, like for gameplay wise, is it's like we have redone a bunch of animations for crafts and S-crafts, and it's like, you know what? These look a lot better. And it's really funny because I'm not sure if Renee's S-craft was in Kuro 1, but I played a bit of him in Kuro 2, and his S-crafts like, this animation is way better than I remember the S-crafts in Kuro 1 being. Is this new? I think it's new. I don't know.
Wait, for who? For which character?
Rene?
Rene.
Sid guy?
Yeah, the CID.
CID. Oh yeah, he has a really great animations to Kuro too. Yeah. I think
like
they did amp it up. Yep.
Yeah, because it stood out. And it seems like Falcom's just getting better and better with doing animations in her new engines. And it sounds like since the team had a bit more time to work on Kai, they were able to focus on polishing things up, which that's good.
I just hope they don't do that one game a year thing. I hope they like put a little bit more development time in things.
Yeah, they can't. The problem is that they can't. They can't. We already know what next year's game is going to be.
Tokyo Xanadu too.
Kyoto Xanadu.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, hopefully, I hope they kind of get into a 2-year cycle with Kiseki at the very least, man. That'll be great because Kai no Kiseki is going to be like the culmination of those efforts. Like, okay, what does this game look like if you actually give this thing a 2-year dev cycle?
They had 3 Trails games in a row. 3 Trails games in a row.
Yeah, it was not good. Yeah,
they definitely need more IPs than just Trails.
And it's like Kuro was good enough. Well, Kuro was fine. Kuro was good at launch, but even then, they had to finish the game a month later.
Yeah. It was unfinished at launch. It was serviceable at launch.
It was literally unfinished at launch. And when we're saying that, we're not exaggerating. We both played that shit at launch.
We saw the game fully at 30 FPS, and it's like, oh, this can run at 60 FPS? That's crazy.
I beat the game, and then the same fucking day they released the patch that added in an entire goddamn scene in the last chapter between Van and Shizuna, reduced the loading times and pop in, and made it 60 FPS, and I was so fucking pissed. Then you also couldn't skip the S-crafts until that patch.
Yep, you could have skipped S-crafts, and they didn't even finish like one of Van's like crafts until that patch too.
A bunch of cutscenes got redone animations. It's like
it was wild, dude. It like
I'm just taking my sweet ass time. I'm not finishing the game all because of like, oh, your deadline for the guy is coming soon.
I feel like such a fucking boomer talking about this, but Western fans, you're not going to get day and date localizations anytime soon when Falcom can't even consistently finish their games in Japan at launch.
Another thing people freaked out about with this Kai no Kiseki is one of the screenshots has Burgard talking to a really interesting NPC in the Kiseki Trails verse.
Let me see this. I've been not really paying too close attention.
You'll definitely know who he is.
Yeah. 1 second. Where is he?
Let me go copy image. I can put it in the voice chat here.
When was the news post for it? Because I'm looking.
No, we didn't put it up on the site.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone knows who he is by just looking at it.
I got this from like the Famitsu scans, so. But digitally, Gamatsu put
Oh my god, he's finally fucking here.
So So one of the characters heavily implied in one of the screenshots is Yun Kafai, which is has been a character that's been talked about forever in the Trail series.
Okay. So now I'm 100% convinced, because like one of the things they did show off in the teaser site is you can use the Grendel form as well as stigmas from church members in the field battles. And the way they described it is, oh, it's not just those two things. It's like it's a power up ability other people have. I'm assuming Shizuna's thing is going to be there. And looking at this, it's like Rein's going to be in Kai. Rein's going to be a
definitely going to be in Kai, dude. I definitely think he's going to be in Kai, especially after that screenshot. I'm like, they're definitely going to make Rein show up in this one. Fuck.
Damn. Or
Look,
get rid of them.
Nah, you can't even be too mad about it, because it's like he's a protagonist character. He's a major character in the series. Of course he was going to show up in Kai. It's like,
I've been really interested to see what the fucking final roster for Kai is, dude. It must be. I feel like it's going to be insane. Maybe not in a good way.
Yeah.
50
It's
playable characters, all for the final battle.
Well, let's see. Ren's a major character in the Kuro games. In fact, you could argue that Ren is the most significant non-playable character in Kuro, which she is. So that means, okay, that's literally like, there's already a bunch of like liberal characters that were in Kuro 1, so it's like, guess you could maybe summon Joshua or Kai just because of Ren, and yeah, it's who knows.
I don't want too many characters, okay? I don't want that clown car meme. The one where it's like, oh, main villain's about to give us a big speech.
I love that. I love that. I love that has that fucking scene has like been not put into the mainstream, but has put into a lot more eyes. I'm just like seeing the absurdity of like Trails characters of like just like 50 of them showing up in front of like one dude as the boss.
Was that Cold Steel 4 or was that Reverie?
That's Reverie. That's in Reverie.
That was Reverie. Yeah. And the funny thing is that Reverie, the way that the route system works, is it alleviate, even though there's so many characters, at least it makes it less like egregious, but it's still funny.
It's still really funny, yeah, because they all meet up at the near the end, and it's like, yep, this is a fucking just army of characters.
Everyone
just and then I do wonder if they legitimately forgot Kevin, or if they just weren't able to render it on, like they couldn't like have enough budget to add even more characters, because they had the whole Merkava thing. It's like, oh, even Kevin's here. There's Merkava's right there off screen. I swear to God, that is non-exaggeration. That is exactly what they fucking say.
Remember when they had to patch in Kevin and Kuro 1, dude?
Yes, and I
that
love
was
how
so funny.
And I love how it's literally they just like forgot because he's in the ending siege. Like,
dude, that is the funniest ongoing joke. Dude.
Man.
Anyway, sorry about that. This new info drop is really funny for multiple reasons.
That's what happens when you get three people in one podcast that actually play Falcom games in Japanese with a chip on their shoulders. God.
I guess I'm going to be the point of contact for like playing the Western release for the podcast.
You got it. Hey man, Kuro 1's awesome. So
yeah, have a great time.
I'm jealous for all the people getting to play Kuro 1 for the first time this year.
Yeah.
And one sales update. This is kind of an unexpected one, and that is that RPG that released back in 2020, Maneater, which is the RPG where you play as a shark, has sold 14 million copies.
That is an absurd number.
That is an absurd number for a game where you play as a shark. A meme Sharknado game.
I
imagine saying it's not deserved. It's just a number way higher than I expected.
Yeah, I imagine Tripwire is very, very, very happy with the way this game sold, and how much it sold. I really wonder, like, I know several VTubers have played this game throughout the years, and that's gotten it through it like in front of many eyes. But I don't exactly know how you reach this number necessarily for a game of like this scope. Like, I wonder what was like the catalyst to like kind of drive the sales of this game. I don't know.
Humble bundles? Was it ever in a bundle?
No, maybe.
I think the meme factor of it does help. It's like,
really?
You get to bite people with a shark. I'll play the shark.
Also,
game.
I remember that it was like very early on it was like a next gen port. Like I think around the launch of the PS5 and Xbox, they had like a next gen version of it at launch. So maybe a lot of people that bought a new console and were looking for something, they were like, oh, here's this funny game I've seen like people post videos of. I'll buy it now since it'll run good. Stuff like that. I don't know.
I wonder, was the MSRP for this like lower than like 60? I imagine it had to be, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. I think it was. Let me check Amazon because they showed the original price.
Yeah, I can't imagine this was 60 at launch. So that I imagine that also is a contributing factor.
Okay, so the MSRP it looks like for the PS5 and Xbox One, like the physical copy, was $40.
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah, that'd be if it was 40, that'd be big. Then that I would definitely help drive up sales.
Yeah,
so that's cool.
I feel like it's been like Steam $5, $10 a few times. Which, not saying that doesn't count, that does. But I think it has been kind of like that kind of gift game, like, here, I got you the game where you play as a shark sort of thing. So, but yeah, I mean, a lot of games we talk about, a lot of the series we spend most of our time discussing on this podcast don't ever reach the 10 million mark, let alone the 14 million mark. So props to Tripwire. A few upcoming dates for the rest of the late spring, early summer. The next update for Honkai Star Rail, version 2.2, the Wake to Weep, then Wake to Weep, will launch on May 8th.
Are you excited for this, Shaw?
No, I'm excited for 2.3 instead.
Okay, well, why not 2.2 and 2.3?
Because 2.3, you get Firefly.
Oh, is Firefly like the current hotness in Honkai?
Well, no. She started in the 2.0 story. She's that really like cute, adorable girl that you go on a date with, and she gets fucking murdered. And then later on, you find out, oh, she's not murdered, and you're like, what? And now you're like, oh, she's a rollable character too in 2.3. It's like that's what everyone's saving up for.
Oh, okay, alrighty.
Like, yeah, that's basically it. Let me tell you, she has the henshin pose. She has Vaughn's, how he's about to transform to Grendel. That pose.
Okay, all right. I like how you have to use that as a comparison. Like, okay, I get it now.
So yeah, I'm more excited for that patch. It's like this patch is basically about getting Robin, a little bit more about the story, so you can finally see what the family is building, the reason why you're going to this planet. And then there's one character called Boot Hill, which you only hear his voice in like the previous story. This guy basically calling up Akurion's place, but somebody else picked up the phone and he's like, "I'm gonna kill you." It's like, we gotta meet up right here. It's like, oh, I'm not that person you're looking for. What? Okay, fine. It's like we'll still meet up anyways, and that's
okay.
Boot Hill. And now you get to see what he looks like. Unless you look at the leaks or they announced it, it's like, but if you played during the story, you didn't know what he looks like. All you had was, in Japanese, it was Konishi's voice, and Konishi usually plays villains these days, right? Like from Summertime Rendering, I guess, right? Just like a big villain roles these days versus protagonists these days, right?
They describe him as a cyborg cowboy.
That is what he looks like.
Okay.
I think people see his hit. I think he's all like reliant on break damage, so you better not dismantle your break gear if you need them.
But you're definitely skipping it, right? Unless the damage are too high.
Well, I might get Robin. I always get support characters in this game because my strat with rolling characters in any mobile game, support always comes first. Support is universal. You can't never power creep support because support is always good.
So even if they're not like super valuable now, they might be super valuable later for a later character.
Yeah, there'll always be a good reason to use support. Like I still use Bronya, and she's still good. Like all the way a year later, it's like she's still freaking broken. But obviously they have way better buffers these days. But she's still good.
Okay.
Like I think the reason why I do like playing Hoyoverse games over a lot of different gacha games is that they don't power creep their characters too hard. Even in like basic Genshin, I have killed the latest boss in 10 seconds using my characters from 2 years ago. So it tells you it's like, yeah, I don't really have an incentive to roll every time they make a new character, it's more like you're just rolling them because they look cool, or you have attachment to them from the storyline, right?
Okay.
So that's for me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I announce another one of these every week, but more Neptunia games are coming out on Switch in the West. This is the Hyper Neptunia Rebirth Trilogy. Will be launching digitally for the Switch eShop on May 21st.
How many times have these games been re-released?
Remember that
2.
one year when Idea Factory released like 5 or 6 like Neptunia games on Vita in the span of like 7 or 8 months?
Remember that when the
It
Idea
feels like
Factory
it feels like we're getting really close to that again with Switch releases. I haven't paid too close attention to know if we've reached that milestone, but the fact that it's even like in consideration is yeah.
They're really giving the original Resident Evil 4 run for its money of like the most re-released game ever record. I don't even know if that's the
Who
original.
holds the record? Is it Skyrim or is it Resident Evil?
I don't know. I actually have no idea. It could be something like Doom for all we know. If you're counting those.
Look, you can
It's
run
gotta
Doom
be
on a
Doom.
post. You can run Doom on a poster, but like from modern games, it's like it's an argument between those two.
It's I haven't been keeping tabs, man, but it's there's a lot of these rebirth or Neptunia re-releases. Remember when they made a PS5 version that's exclusive to the PS5? Fuck, man.
Yeah, the remake of the remaster for PS5 of the original game or whatever it was.
It was okay, so it was a remaster of the PS4 version, which I believe only came out in Japan too, I believe, which was a remaster of the PC version, which was a remaster of the Vita version, which was a remake of the PS3 version. And the reason it had
so complicated.
and the reason why it said the title is like Go 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 is because it's the 5th version on PS5 and they're just doing it.
Yeah, it was like a 5th re-release of the
Yeah.
Whatever.
Josh, did I get everything right there? Did I mess something up along the way, or is that accurate?
I'll just say yes, I'll just say yes. So yeah, Rebirth Trilogy on Switch on May 21 for North America and Europe. If you really wanted to play the Neptunia games on your Switch, you have 3 games in next month. Congratulations. We're happy for you.
In the complete opposite direction, Wizardry Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord, which released on PC in early access late last year in September, will be going to full release on May 23rd, and also for consoles as well, in addition to releasing fully on PC. And this is the 3D remake of the original like Apple Wizardry game.
Yeah, add the one on Apple too. Yep. Which is and it's really cool because you see that on the UI. You see the original game running out like the Apple II UI at like the bottom right corner as you're playing the game. So you can just use that as a reference as well. It's like, hey, they actually built this game on top of that original code for the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they do that a lot, and it looks neat. I think I'll have time to play it? Question mark. I think
it's also fucking difficult. So like I'd have to like pull up like some like I'd have to like relearn like Wizardry again.
It's okay. It's okay. I survived Stranger of Sword City. I'm pretty sure I can handle Wizardry, considering Stranger of Sword City is as hard as a fucking Wizardry. God.
Yeah, so that's man. Digital Eclipse just continues doing incredible fucking work just in the industry overall, dude. Like Digital Eclipse is like a blessing, what they do. So it's really fucking cool to see them doing this. It's gonna be available, like you said, like on every platform: PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series, Xbox One, and Switch. So no matter where you're playing it, you have access to this game. It's also really cool that they also mentioned that they work with Japanese novelist Benny Matsuyama who, for the bestiary creature descriptions for this game. Yeah, he wrote up works in the late 80s and early 90s of wizardry novels in Japan with the like true 2 entries in the Wizardry novel series and the Wizardry Gaiden 2, Curse of the Ancient Emperor. So even just like getting that alumni back for this re-release, it is really, really fucking cool. Yeah, really. And I've also linked to the Steam update page, like just like if people want to see like the the things they've hot fixed and like added over time in the early access period for this game. That's fantastic. There's just nothing but good news all around here. That's really, really cool that they did this.
The last update that we have for this episode of the Tetracast is that the Japanese version of DanMachi Memoria Freeze will be shutting down on June 24th. The global version of the game shut down earlier this year in February.
Another mobile game down, Chow.
Look, I blame Crunchyroll in this one, even though they have nothing to do with it.
Even though the Japanese version, it's still Crunchyroll's fault in this for you. All right, okay.
Did anyone in our Discord mobile channel play this game?
I think they played it like day one when they were announcing it for a global release, and then they said that Crunchyroll got hold of it, and then they were like doing a lot of censorship, and everyone's like, "No!"
I remember this. There was unlike the usual case where people just like take things out of like proportion. Like the original announcement, they made a big deal about how it was going to be the exact same game. It wasn't going to be edited, and then like a few trailers later, they basically revealed that one of the gameplay mechanics was gone. And so people got up in arms. And in that case, I can understand the outrage because it's like you said one thing, then you went back on it. And that is like disappointing and whatnot. So.
And then I think after like a year or two, I think the Japanese publishers were like kind of mad on how Crunchyroll was handling it. So they basically took back the rights and they were doing the English sides of things from then on. So that's basically.
I wonder if they ever reverted the censorship then, if they got a hold of the English version themselves.
I think they probably did. I can't be too sure. I don't play it, so I can't. I can't confirm, but that's the backstory of this. the original publisher took it back just because they didn't like how Crunchyroll handled it. So,
I mean, can't blame them if Crunchyroll's saying one thing and then saying another, that like damages the brand. So,
I wish they did something better about Princess Connect. I think that one rubs a big one in our community because
the fact that they still tweet about the anniversaries, it's like, no, don't put your interns through that. Don't make them tweet that, you assholes.
Yeah, that's one strategy to remind people, I guess. But yeah, I mean, of course, our Discord is always gonna be sore about that because we had a pretty tight knit guild that I ran for that game, and there was monthly clan battles in it that we all got together and participated in.
All I remember about that is seeing that Zach was briefly in that clan, and then he wasn't able to keep up with the grind, and so he had to give it up. It's like, oh man.
Yeah, it was a daily grind to like power up your characters and get through content. It was a fun game though. I mean, I enjoyed my time with it, but I was okay with also letting go of it. I'm like, it is what it is. Everyone goes through this if they play mobile games. I'm okay. I won't be salty about it.
Luckily, I only played one game that shut down, so I'm good.
So you're fine.
Yeah, the only game that I ever played was Dragalia Lost, and that was the one that shut down. Out of the gacha games I played, it's like all the other ones I played, they're still alive. So I will never escape freedom until those two are closed.
I'm done with mobile games, dude. I'm done. The only one I did was the Atelier Resliana game earlier this year because there was no other games to play early this year. So I was just using that as a way to like fill in time, and I got my enjoyment. And then real games came out, and I was like, all right,
you'll be back at Fate when they announced Lost Spell 8 or something.
I mean, I'll definitely pick that up to like read the story. I have my team is good enough to get through it, so I have no problem just picking that up and reading the story, putting it back down. I never logged into Fate Go again after like I finished like that story event, and then because for me that game is like I'll play it when there's main story. Like the main story drops like once a year now in that game, so I'm like I'll pick it up once a year, get through the story and read it, enjoy it, then put it back down.
That's a very good mindset.
Like I know a lot of some people in our Discord like keep up with that game daily and go to the events, and that's fine. But for me, I'm just like I can't do this mobile game grind daily. I can't do it. I'm not young enough anymore, man.
I wish there was a way to access the story more usable.
Yeah,
I want to read
yeah.
it.
I wish there was too. I wish there was too. I'm sure there's like YouTube videos, but that's like not a great way.
Yeah,
either.
because they're not reading at your speed. Sometimes the text takes forever to move.
Yep. And
You know, and you're like, or maybe they read it too fast and then you gotta keep rewinding.
So I know the next big one people are like hyping up is Wuthering Waves at the end of May.
I'm not going to that, but I feel like it's a good thing because Genshin's having a lot more competition, so maybe they might add a lot more content or things to improve the game. So I'm looking forward to it.
Everyone's like, "Here's the next Genshin killer." I'm like, "All right, here we go again. The fifth Genshin killer." Here's the
As
next.
someone who's not in that realm at all, there was like
Uh-huh.
a mobile store page for Zenless Zone Zero that had a date like June or July. I forget what it was.
It was like July
I think it
2nd
was
or
the same
something.
time around as.
It's like Anime
And I saw
Expo,
someone
right?
say
On
like,
trail.
"Yeah, someone was like, I'll be done with Wuthering Waves by then." So like, just turning through these gacha games like Wuthering Waves.
I gotta go from the fifth Genshin killer to the sixth Genshin killer, and then after I'm done prepping the sixth Genshin killer, I go to the seventh Genshin killer.
Where's that WoW killer that people keep speaking of for so many years?
The Halo killer, remember those? Killzone? That was supposed to be the Halo killer, remember? So,
Well, we have once again managed to have an incredibly long podcast. How did we do this?
We fucked up again.
Yeah, basically. Oh man, I was like, did we hit the 3-hour mark? And I'm looking, oh yeah, we hit the 3-hour mark.
Maybe I should have not played Stellar Blade.
No, I don't regret any of it. It's just that there's a lot to talk about, and we knew this was coming. We knew that at the end of April, this was going to be it. But yeah, obviously, if you are listening to this and you've made it to the end, you have not clicked off, or you've been able to be with us for the whole 3-hour runtime. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate all the support that you give us. Do read the reviews for Stellar Blade, for SaGa Emerald Beyond on the website, rpgsite.net. Also, Adam I forget if we had it published at the time of the last recording, but we also have the very recent review of Eiyuden Chronicle, also up on the website. All the Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes guides are on the website. Stay tuned for all the other games that have released, like Sandland and the rest. You can find RPG Site on all the social media networks. You can just search for RPG Site on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You should be able to find us. Join our Discord at discord.gg/RPG Site, or you can hit the link at the top of our homepage, rpgsite.net. Leave us a thumbs up, a comment, a rating on whatever you listen to us on. We love to see that. And until you hear from us next week, stay safe and take care. We'll talk to y'all later.